Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles. Chapter 1916. I believe that you must still be alive. Because I can feel it. Tan Tai Li muttered to herself, turned her head to look at Qin Feiyang, and asked, which direction should we go? Which direction? Qin Feiyang glanced around and suddenly thought of a person. Wait for me. Qin Feiyang said to the two of them, and then appeared in the Black Tortoise realm. Then, he closed his eyes and extended his perception infinitely. Soon, he found the undead in the depths of the desert. But his expression was a little shocked. Whoosh! The next moment, he appeared above a sand dune. Below, a young woman was standing on a sand dune. Her figure was excellent, and her waist was small and slender. Her two slender jade-like legs were incomparably tall. Her facial features were also extremely exquisite, especially her eyes, which were like gemstones, ethereal with a trace of confusion. She stood quietly on the sand dune alone, without a single piece of clothing on her body. Everything was presented in front of Qin Feiyang at a glance. Her beautiful black hair danced in the wind. Even with Qin Feiyang's temperament, he couldn't help but feel restless when he saw this scene. Cough, cough. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly. The woman was startled and looked up at Qin Feiyang. Gusts of wind whistled, blowing the hair on her forehead. A fire lotus symbol appeared between her eyebrows. Qin Feiyang looked at the symbol with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. You're here. The woman spoke and smiled slightly, looking extremely charming. Her voice was also very pleasant, like an oriole coming out of the valley. Qin Feiyang nodded and said awkwardly, you'd better put on some clothes first. Clothes? The woman was stunned, and her face was slightly red. Divine power emerged and transformed into a pale yellow dress on her body. Qin Feiyang looked up and down at the woman. This was a woman who could be on par with the mermaid princess. Her every move, every frown, every smile, could affect a man's heart. Qin Feiyang asked, are you really that undead? The woman nodded. Qin Feiyang asked, what about your memories? A trace of disappointment appeared on the woman's face. She sighed and said, after I condensed my physical body, I have been here. I tried to recall the past, but many things are a blur. Qin Feiyang frowned. What's your name? I can't remember either. The woman shook her head. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He comforted her, take your time, don't worry. Yes. The woman nodded. Qin Feiyang asked, you don't have to devour undead anymore, do you? The woman replied, there are no more undead here. Ugh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He shook his head helplessly and said, then let's go out. I have already entered the ancient realm and need your help. My pleasure. The woman nodded with a smile. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the two of them suddenly appeared outside. Seeing Qin Feiyang suddenly bring out a strange woman, Tan Tai Li and the mermaid princess looked a little stunned. After coming back to her senses, Tan Tai Li teased, boy, I didn't know that you have learned to keep a mistress in a golden house. Qin Feiyang shook his head with a wry smile and said, let me introduce you. This is my great-grandmother, and this is my wife. Hello. The woman bowed politely and smiled. The mermaid princess looked at the woman, then looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, what about her? She is an undead. Qin Feiyang said. What? An undead? Tan Tai Li and the mermaid princess looked at each other. Tan Tai Li said in surprise, are you talking about the undead you brought out of the ancient realm? Qin Feiyang nodded. How is this possible? An undead can condense a physical body? Tan Tai Li found it hard to accept that it was a living woman. Qin Feiyang said, she devoured all the undead in the desert, so she slowly condensed a physical body. The woman said, I will continue in the future because I can't cultivate now. I can only devour undead to become stronger. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, this ancient realm doesn't lack undead. The mermaid princess asked, then should we call you? The woman thought for a moment, then touched the fire lotus between her eyebrows and said, you can call me Fire Lotus. Fire Lotus? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Although my memory is very vague, I can vaguely feel that this Fire Lotus mark is very important to me. It is even possible that this Fire Lotus mark represents my identity. After the woman finished speaking, her divine power surged again and condensed into a mask, covering her face and the Fire Lotus mark. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The woman said with a smile, before I figure out my identity, it is best not to let others see this mark to avoid being used by others. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled and said, you've considered everything quite thoroughly. Although I can't remember the past, I still have a sense of crisis. Let's not talk about this first. What do you need me to do? The woman said. Qin Feiyang said, you should know where the Guo clan is, right? The Guo clan, the woman thought for a moment and asked, are you talking about the two people called Guoji and Guoda? Qin Feiyang nodded. Seeing this, the woman's eyes flashed with killing intent. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, it seems that you don't have a good impression of the Guo clan. Of course. Back in the ancient realm, Guoji repeatedly came to find trouble with me. Last time, he even brought Guoda. If you hadn't saved me, my soul would have been scattered. The woman's eyes were filled with bone-chilling coldness. Qin Feiyang asked, then do you know where the Guo clan is? I do. Once, Guoji brought a few burly men over. I killed those burly men and Guoji escaped. After that, I followed him and went to his clan. The woman said. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, it's good that you know. Bring me there. Are you sure? The Guo clan has more than 30 war gods. You know Guo Zixiong's cultivation. He is a great success war god. Guo Zixiong's father is even stronger than Guo Zixiong. He is a perfect war god. The woman said. Perfect war god. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Tan Tai Li and the mermaid princess were also extremely shocked. Just the Guo family alone had more than 30 war gods and even a perfected war god in charge. Heavens! What kind of world is this ancient realm? How many powerful warriors are there? Qin Feiyang calmed himself down and said, how much do you know? Like the Guo clan. I've only been there once and was almost discovered by Guo Zixiong. So, I didn't stay for long. I only know a little about their strength. The woman said. Qin Feiyang said, looks like I have to go there. Since you insist, I'll lead the way for you. After saying that, the woman headed west. Great-grandmother, follow me. Qin Feiyang called out to Tan Tai Li. Then, he pulled the mermaid princess and chased after the woman. The mermaid princess asked suspiciously, Feiyang, who is the Guo clan? Why do you care so much about them? Girl, you still don't know. Qin Feiyang is here and he has a fiancée. And this fiancée is Guo Zixiong's daughter. Tan Tai Li joked. What? The mermaid princess was stunned. Great-grandmother, do you want to see the world in chaos? Qin Feiyang was quite angry. Then, he suddenly frowned and said, wait, great-grandmother, how do you know about this? I don't remember telling you before, right? You think you can hide it from me? I already knew from Zhao Tailai and the others. Tan Tai Li snorted. Those big mouths. Qin Feiyang cursed angrily. He turned to the mermaid princess and said, even I am a little confused about this, so don't think too much about it. Great-grandmother, are you telling the truth? The mermaid princess said. Qin Feiyang nodded with a wry smile. Humph, you're really something. You came to the divine site and got a fiancé. The mermaid princess snorted coldly. I swear to God, I don't even know what the woman looks like. It's purely something done by my ancestor. Qin Feiyang hurriedly told the mermaid princess the details of the marriage contract. I see. The mermaid princess nodded. So, I can't accept this fiancé at all. Moreover, although the handwriting on the marriage contract is indeed the same as my ancestors, it can't be ruled out that Guo Zixiong and the others imitated it. Qin Feiyang said. But one thing is certain. Your ancestor did appear in the ancient world. Tan Tai Li said. Qin Feiyang nodded. On the way, Qin Feiyang and the female fire lotus didn't stay idle. They carefully searched the surrounding land with their divine sense. The undead creatures that they encountered were all devoured by the fire lotus. Qin Feiyang also found 3 ancient sites. These ancient sites were all left behind by the god of war. Unfortunately, there were no divine weapons or divine arts, but there were a dozen soul stones. The mermaid princess was very curious when she saw the soul stones for the first time. Especially when she learned that the soul stones had a great effect on condensing divine sense, she was even more surprised. She tried to refine one soul stone and the effect was indeed terrifying. As for the other dozen soul stones, Qin Feiyang sent them to the ancient castle for Qin Rushuang, the white-eyed wolf, Lei Bao, the willow tree, and Yu Huang to refine. After all, it was difficult to be useful in the ancient world if they didn't break through to the god of war. About an hour later. Boom! Crack! Suddenly. There were waves of fighting in the void in front of them. What's going on? Qin Feiyang was surprised. I've been here before. There are no humans in this area. Could it be undead creatures fighting? The female fire lotus mumbled. Her eyes lit up when she mentioned undead creatures. Tan Tai Li glanced at the female fire lotus and said, Feiyang, can you see through her cultivation? Cultivation? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He really didn't pay attention to this person's cultivation. Then, he looked at the female fire lotus and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. The female had concealed her aura, but he could still see through her cultivation. She was an early-stage god of war. Her strength wasn't simple. After a few dozen breaths of time, Qin Feiyang's group stopped at the peak of a barren mountain and raised their heads to look ahead. They saw 2 groups of people fighting in the void in front of them. There were more than 20 people on both sides. Every one of them was covered in blood and looked extremely miserable. Their cultivation was at the early stage god of war. Literature Center. Chapter 1917. So many gods of war. The mermaid princess stared with her mouth agape. 1. 2. 3. Tan Tai Li counted silently. In the end, a look of shock appeared on her face. Both sides have 23 people. In other words, there are a total of 46 gods of war here. Tan Tai Li said in a deep voice. 46 gods of war. When Qin Feiyang heard the number, his heart could not calm down. Thinking back to the battle with the demon ancestor in the Sea of Reincarnation, it was already shocking enough. But at that time, including the blood Kirin, there were only 6 gods of war by his side. And the demon ancestor's side only had 12 gods of war. Even in total, there were only 18 gods of war. But now, the 2 groups fighting here had 23 gods of war on each side. Could it be that there were as many gods of war as dogs in the ancient realm? The mermaid princess said again, and each of them has a divine artifact and divine art. Clang! Clang! Qin Feiyang glanced at them one by one. As expected. The 46 people were either holding divine artifacts or wearing battle armor. Divine arts flew all over the sky. The ancient realm I saw the first 2 times was just the tip of the iceberg. Qin Feiyang could not help but smile bitterly. He could tell at a glance that these divine arts and divine artifacts were not of high grades. Most of them were low-grade divine arts and low-grade divine artifacts. But even so, it was shocking enough. No wonder Dong Zhengyang wanted to bring the demon ancestor and the others to the ancient realm. Here, their strength can indeed grow rapidly. Fei Yang, we can't relax either. The mermaid princess said. Yes. We have been cultivating in the Great Qin for half a year, and they have been cultivating in the ancient realm for half a year. I think they have all broken through by now. Tan Tai Li said. Don't worry about that. Mu Tianyang's space divine item has been destroyed, which means that he no longer has a time array. Although the demon ancestor's demon pagoda is still there, I don't think they will stay together. As for Dong Zhengyang, I can't say for sure. Maybe the snow python also gave him a space divine item with a time array, or maybe not. But regardless, I don't care. Because I believe that their time formations can't compare to the ancient castle. Qin Fei Yang said with a confident smile. We can't be careless either. Although the ancient castle's time array is heaven-defying, this is still the ancient world. We don't even know if there's any divine item that surpasses the ancient castle here. Tan Tai Li said. That's true. Qin Fei Yang nodded. Rumble. The battle between the two sides was getting more and more intense. It was a battle of life and death. Why are they fighting? There has to be a reason, right? The mermaid princess was suspicious. Gao Tai, you've gone too far. Suddenly, a furious roar came from afar. This voice, Qin Fei Yang was taken aback. What's wrong? The mermaid princess and Tan Tai Li looked at him suspiciously. This is Guoda's voice. Follow me. Qin Fei Yang's eyes flashed. He activated the concealment technique and took Tan Tai Li, the mermaid princess, and the fire lotus to the sky and flew in the direction of the voice. About 10 breaths passed. Another battlefield came into sight. On the battlefield, the two old men were bathed in blood as they fought. They fought until the sky turned dark. One of the old men was wearing a linen robe with white hair. It was Guoda. The other was a red-haired old man who was also wearing a linen robe. His whole body was covered in flames like a fire god. The aura he emitted was not weaker than Guoda. I was wondering why they weren't guarding the entrance of the ancient world. It turned out that a war had broken out. Qin Fei Yang murmured. Even further away, there was another battlefield. The fluctuations and aura of the battle were more terrifying than here. Qin Fei Yang took the three of them and flew over brazenly. Although they were brazen, they activated the concealment technique. Neither Guoda nor the red-haired old man noticed them. When they flew to the battlefield, Qin Fei Yang could not help but frown. In the battlefield, there were two middle-aged men who were also engaged in a bloody battle. One of them was burly with a height of 2 meters. He was like a small giant. His upper body was bare and he only wore a pair of large underpants. His whole body emitted a valiant aura. The other man was wearing a black linen robe. His body was slightly thin and his eyes were deep. His facial features were sharp and there were strands of white hair at his temples. His expression was rather cold. The cultivation of the two men was stronger than Guoda and the red-haired old man. They were war gods in the greater success stage. Moreover, they each had a divine artifact in their hands. The burly man had a battle axe in his hand. It was about the size of a wash basin. It was completely black as if it was made of black iron. The middle-aged man in black had a divine artifact in his hand. It was a pure gold battle sword that was 5 fingers wide. Both of them emitted a sharp aura that could tear the sky and earth apart. What's wrong? Mermaid Princess saw Qin Fei Yang frowning and was somewhat puzzled. Qin Fei Yang sent a sound transmission. That black-clothed middle-aged man is Guo Zixiong. Tan Tai Li was startled, she looked at Guo Zixiong and secretly teased, "So he is your future father-in-law." "Great-grandmother, what nonsense are you talking about?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. "Haha," Tan Taili laughed secretly. Qin Feiyang shook his head, looked at Guo Zixiong and the burly man, and frowned. "Such a large-scale battle, what exactly are they doing? Aren't you going to help them? After all, they gave you a lot of soul stones the previous 2 times. Mermaid Princess secretly said. When Qin Feiyang heard this, his eyes flickered. Indeed, Guo Zixiong had helped him a lot. Because, without the soul stone, he wouldn't have been able to break through to the war god so quickly. Without breaking through to the war god, he wouldn't be able to unleash the full power of the 6-word divine arts. Without the 6-word divine arts, he wouldn't have any chance of defeating the demon ancestor. Then the current Great Qin and Forgotten Continent would definitely be in a different situation. After pondering for a moment, Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, and said, "Let's take a look at the situation first. At the moment, the Guo family doesn't show any signs of defeat." Time passed bit by bit. Both sides were heavily injured. But the flames of war had not stopped. And from the beginning to the end, the woman Fire Lotus's expression didn't change at all, as if she was watching a very ordinary battle. Tan Taili said, "From the looks of it, if we continue to fight, both sides will definitely suffer." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, he looked at the 3 of them and smiled. "You guys go into the castle first." Mermaid Princess said worriedly, "Then you have to be careful." "Girl, don't worry. Not to mention these small success, great success, even perfect war god is not a match for your sweetheart." Tan Taili said. Mermaid Princess's face flushed red. Qin Feiyang laughed, "Little girl, you have to learn from great-grandmother on this point. No matter what, you have to have full confidence in me." Mermaid Princess nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent the 3 of them to the castle. Then, he looked at the burly man, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Shua! Following closely, he silently approached the burly man. The burly man and Guo Zixiong were fighting fiercely. But suddenly, an unprecedented sense of danger rose in his heart. However, the burly man didn't think that there were other people hiding in the dark, he only thought that this sense of danger was brought by Guo Zixiong. So, he didn't escape, but was wary of Guo Zixiong. Clang! The giant axe and the battle sword crazily collided in the air, bursting out with dazzling flames. Qin Feiyang glanced at the giant axe, and finally shook his head in disappointment. Originally, he wanted to take the opportunity to snatch the giant axe. But according to his observation, it was only a middle-grade divine artifact. It didn't even have a weapon spirit, so it was meaningless to take it. And the battle sword in Guo Zixiong's hand was only a middle-grade divine artifact. It seemed that even in the ancient world, a supreme-grade divine artifact was very rare, let alone a peak-level and legendary divine artifact. The sense of danger didn't disappear for a long time. The burly man frowned and said angrily, "Guo Zixiong, what means do you have? Show them all, don't hide." "What do you mean?" Guo Zixiong didn't understand. "Humph. Don't hide it. I can already feel the threat, you must be hiding some trump card." The burly man said. Threat? Guo Zixiong was stunned. What was this and what? He didn't understand at all. But at this moment, a young man in white suddenly appeared behind the burly man. It was Qin Feiyang. Guo Zixiong was facing the burly man, so he immediately noticed Qin Feiyang, and his body suddenly stiffened. Just as Qin Feiyang appeared, the burly man also sensed Qin Feiyang's aura, and his face immediately changed. It was also at this moment that he realized that the sense of danger in his heart didn't come from Guo Zixiong. Who is it? But in just a moment, the burly man reacted, and without hesitation, he swung his axe at Qin Feiyang. The sharp edge covered the sky, shattering the sky. So fast. Qin Feiyang was surprised, but he didn't dodge at all. He directly raised his arm and reached for the giant axe with his bare hands. Seeing this, Guo Zixiong's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly shouted, "Get out of the way!" Fighting against a divine artifact with bare hands? It was simply crazy. However, Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. Clang! In an instant, the big hand and the giant axe met, and there was a loud ear-piercing sound. Immediately after, an incredible scene appeared in front of Guo Zixiong's eyes. He saw that Qin Feiyang actually grabbed the giant axe with his bare hands, and he was even holding the blade of the giant axe. Moreover, there was no blood flowing out of his hand. In other words, the giant axe didn't even scratch his skin. How is it possible to fight against a middle-grade divine artifact with bare hands? Guo Zixiong's eyes widened in anger. This kind of thing was too ridiculous. The burly man turned around and his face suddenly changed, his face full of disbelief. In fact, this was nothing to Qin Feiyang. Back when he helped the inner demons to go through the tribulation, his physical body had been greatly strengthened after being tempered by the tribulation. Although later on, when he opened the door of rebirth and his divine body disintegrated, when the child used the heart of origin to help him reconstruct his physical body, he didn't make any changes. In other words, his physical body was still at the same level as before. A mere middle-grade divine artifact, let alone blocking it, he could even crush it with his bare hands. It can't be, it must be a smokescreen. It's impossible for a mere body of flesh and blood to block a divine artifact, the burly man murmured and wanted to withdraw the axe, but he found that Qin Feiyang's strength was beyond his imagination. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake off Qin Feiyang's hand that was holding the giant axe. Chapter 1918. Who are you? The burly man stared at Qin Feiyang, his eyes filled with fear. Although Qin Feiyang was only a low-level war god and was weaker than the burly man and Guo Zixiong, the methods he displayed shocked the two of them. Qin Feiyang smiled but didn't say anything, his 5 fingers suddenly exerted force. Immediately, accompanied by a loud clang, the giant axe shattered into pieces under the horrified gazes of the two. What? The two of them trembled both physically and mentally, their eyeballs almost popping out. A dignified middle-grade divine artifact was shattered just like that. Heavens! Was this a dream? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, his expression did not change. Divine power shot out from his palm and slapped towards the burly man's lower abdomen. The burly man regained his senses and wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Ah! Accompanied by a painful scream, divine power tore apart the flesh on the burly man's lower abdomen and entered his qi. His qi shattered on the spot. Once his qi shattered, the burly man's aura dissipated like the tide and fell down powerlessly. It's over just like that. Guo Zixiong was stunned in the air, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Uncle, long time no see." Guo Zixiong quivered and looked at the burly man below him. Then, he quickly put away his battle sword and ran in front of Qin Feiyang. He said in surprise, "Feiyang, when did you come?" "Not long ago." Qin Feiyang said. "You came at the right time. If it wasn't for your help, even if our Guo family won this battle, we would have suffered heavy losses." Guo Zixiong was overjoyed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Uncle, you're too polite. It was just a small matter." "A small matter?" Guo Zixiong was stunned. He sized up Qin Feiyang and helplessly shook his head, as expected of Brother Baishan's descendant. He remembered that the last time Qin Feiyang came to the ancient realm, he was only a false god. How long had it been? Only half a year. Not only did he step into the war god realm, he even broke through to the small success war god realm. This speed was truly shocking. Qin Feiyang said, I have to thank Uncle. If it weren't for those soul stones, my cultivation wouldn't have advanced so quickly. Guo Zixiong rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang and said, "We'll be a family in the future. Why are you being so polite?" "A family," Qin Feiyang muttered to himself. Pointing at the burly man who had fallen to the ground below, he asked suspiciously, "Uncle, who are they? Why are you fighting?" "It's a long story. I'll tell you when I have time." Guo Zixiong smiled and swooped down. He landed in front of the burly man and sneered, "Surnamed Gao, you didn't expect that my Guo family would have such a terrifying young man." The burly man's eyes darkened. He looked at Qin Feiyang, then at Guo Zixiong and said, "How come I've never heard of such a person in your Guo family? He is my future son-in-law. How is it? Is he worthy of your attention?" Guo Zixiong smiled proudly. Future son-in-law. The burly man was stunned. "Forget it. There's no need to talk nonsense with you. Today is the end of your Gao family." A cold light flashed in Guo Zixiong's eyes. He kicked the burly man's head, which immediately exploded like a watermelon. His divine soul was also destroyed on the spot. How cruel! Qin Feiyang muttered to himself as he watched this scene. He really didn't know whether it was right or wrong to help the Guo family. If the Guo family was in the wrong first, wouldn't he be helping the evildoer? Forget it. Let's not think so much. Our ancestors ruled the world with benevolence and righteousness. If this person can be friends with our ancestors, his nature shouldn't be bad. Qin Feiyang muttered. After Guo Zixiong killed the burly man, he took a ring from the man's index finger. Then he flew into the air and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. He said with a smile, "Let's go and help the other clansmen." Qin Feiyang nodded and followed Guo Zixiong. He glanced at the ring and asked suspiciously, "Uncle, is that ring a divine artifact?" Guo Zixiong was stunned. He looked at the ring in his hand and asked, "You mean this?" Qin Feiyang nodded. Guo Zixiong smiled and said, "This is not a divine artifact. It's an interspatial ring." An interspatial ring? Qin Feiyang was stunned. You don't know. In the ancient world, those who have some ability basically use interspatial rings. Like interspatial bags, interspatial rings are used to store things. But the difference is that the space inside an interspatial ring is hundreds of times larger than that of an interspatial bag. No matter how much wealth or how big an item is, it can hold it. But this interspatial ring is quite expensive. Most people still use interspatial bags. Guo Zixiong explained. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded. It's very novel, isn't it? There are many things in the ancient world that are different from those in your world. For example, we don't have the teleportation gate in your world. And the currency. You use gold coins, but we use divine crystals. Guo Zixiong smiled. Divine crystals. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Guo Zixiong asked suspiciously, You know about divine crystals? Qin Feiyang said, I don't know if the divine crystals I know are the same as the divine crystals you're talking about. The divine crystals he was talking about were naturally the divine crystals fused with the divine towers. Guo Zixiong was stunned. He cut his finger and dripped his blood on the interspatial ring to claim ownership. Then, Guo Zixiong took out a white oval crystal from the interspatial ring. It was half the size of a baby and emitted a white brilliance. This is the divine crystal. Guo Zixiong handed the divine crystal to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at the divine crystal suspiciously and then grabbed it in his hand. A stream of pure energy suddenly flowed into his palm and flowed along his arm into his sea of qi and turned into divine power. This, Qin Feiyang was shocked. This divine crystal is not only the currency of the ancient world, but also can replenish or restore divine power. In short, the effect of the divine crystal is similar to that of the battle qi pill. Guo Zixiong smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "This is different from the divine crystal I'm talking about. The divine crystal I'm talking about is a divine artifact. Then it's just the name. Feiyang, there's something I need to tell you in advance. In our ancient world, there are 3 things that are indispensable." Guo Zixiong said. "What are they?" Qin Feiyang asked. "The first is the divine crystal. The second is the soul stone. The third is the teleportation altar. Here, no matter where you go to trade, you'll need divine crystals. During battle, you'll also need divine crystals to replenish your divine power. As for the soul stone, I don't need to tell you. As for the teleportation altar, it's the same as the teleportation gate in your world. It's used to cross the void." Guo Zixiong said. "Using the teleportation altar to cross the void? That's too extravagant." Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course, the teleportation altar here is a one-time use item. It can't teleport to other continents. However, the teleportation distance is a few hundred times that of the teleportation gate. Moreover, low-level items like the teleportation gate can't be activated here. Guo Zixiong smiled. If the teleportation gate can't be activated, then there's definitely no teleportation gate here. Then, how did Uncle know about the teleportation gate? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Of course, it's because of your ancestor. When he came to the ancient world, I saw the teleportation gate and heard him talk about it. I also know a little about the situation in your world." Guo Zixiong smiled. "I see." Qin Feiyang suddenly realized and asked curiously, "How big is the ancient world?" "The size of the ancient world is beyond your imagination. Even I, a native, only know the tip of the iceberg. As for the details of the ancient world, I'll tell you slowly when we return to the clan." Guo Zixiong said. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. While talking, the two had already approached the battlefield of Guoda and the red-haired old man. Guo Zixiong's aura was not concealed at all. When he saw Guo Zixiong and Qin Feiyang, Guoda's expression was immediately stunned. At the same time, the red-haired old man's expression suddenly changed. Guo Zixiong actually came. Then, wouldn't the patriarch of the Gao family be, "Old thing, the end of your Gao family has arrived"? Guo Zixiong's eyes flashed fiercely. Before his voice faded, he took out the battle sword and attacked the red-haired old man. "Damn it, what the hell happened? Is the patriarch dead or not?" The red-haired old man pushed Guoda away with his palm and roared, "Everyone, retreat." His voice was like a bell, resounding in all directions. Obviously, he was reminding the 23 gods of war on the other side of the battlefield. After saying that, the red-haired old man turned around and fled without looking back. Qin Feiyang looked at this scene and was a little puzzled. Guo Zixiong said before that although the ancient world could not open the portal, it could open the altar. Then, why didn't the red-haired old man activate the altar to escape? Guo Zixiong said, "Second uncle, leave this person to me. Quickly go over there to support. Don't let anyone escape." "Okay." Guoda nodded and glanced at Qin Feiyang. He temporarily suppressed the doubts in his heart and teleported away. At this time, the red-haired old man had already activated the altar. He was about to escape, but at this time, Guo Zixiong attacked. Guo Zixiong's cultivation was higher than the red-haired old man's, so naturally, his speed was also faster than the red-haired old man. However, in the blink of an eye, he caught up with the battle sword in his hand. The sword light shattered the void and the earth as he furiously slashed with the sword. Ah! Following a scream, the red-haired old man's body was split into two by the battle sword. Blood splattered across the sky. The altar was also instantly shattered by the sword chi. "It's finally over," Guo Zixiong murmured. He found a Qinkuan bag from the red-haired old man's corpse, put away his battle sword, and flew towards Qin Feiyang. Qinkuan bag? Qin Feiyang frowned. The black-clothed old man was an initial stage god of war, but he only used a qianquan bag. It seemed that what Guo Zixiong said was true. Qianquan rings were extremely expensive in the ancient world. Ah! At this time. On the other side of the battlefield, there were also screams of despair. Qin Feiyang raised his head to take a look. Presumably, Guo De had already rushed over. The Gao clan's people would probably all be buried here. After all, Guo De was an initial stage god of war. It was too easy for an initial stage god of war to kill an initial stage god of war. Unless the other party had a very powerful technique. But obviously, the 23 gods of war of the Gao family did not have such a technique. Otherwise, they would not have fought with the Guo family until now. Chapter 1919. The battle gradually stopped. Guo De led the 23 war gods of the Guo clan and flew over in a grandiose manner. Although they were all seriously injured, their faces were filled with smiles of victory. Patriarch. Is this young man the brat called Qin Feiyang that you spoke of? The 23 war gods looked at Qin Feiyang curiously. Yes. We have to thank Feiyang this time. If he didn't cripple that Gao guy's cultivation, we wouldn't know how long we would have to fight. Guo Zixiong said with a smile. What? He crippled that Gao guy's cultivation. Patriarch, are you kidding? He's only a low-tier war god. How could he have such strength? Everyone was shocked. Guo De's face was also filled with disbelief. Not only that, he also crushed that giant axe with his bare hands. In short, Feiyang's strength is not something you can compare to. Guo Zixiong said. Seeing that Guo Zixiong didn't seem to be joking, Guo De and the others were shocked. Crushing a mid-tier divine artifact with his bare hands and crippling the cultivation of the patriarch of the Gao family. Feiyang, let me introduce you. Guo De, my second uncle. You've met him before. These people are the direct descendants of the Guo family. They can be considered your elders. Guo Zixiong looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile. Hello everyone. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. Hello little brother. They say that heroes come from the young. It's true. Our Sweki is also lucky to have found such a good husband. Everyone was talking at the same time, and they all had sincere smiles on their faces. It seems that the Guo family isn't a bunch of villains. Qin Feiyang muttered to himself. At first, he hesitated because he was worried that the Guo family was a big traitor. He didn't care about the so-called good husband. Not to mention that he already had the mermaid princess. Even if he was single, he couldn't marry a woman he had never met and didn't know at all. Guo Zixiong smiled and said, Feiyang, let's go. Follow us back to the clan. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then nodded and said with a smile, all right. He definitely had to pay the Guo clan a visit. Although Guo Zixiong didn't know the whereabouts of his ancestor, perhaps he could find some clues by entering the Guo clan. Then, Qin Feiyang followed Guo Zixiong and the others and headed west. After galloping for a while, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but ask suspiciously, Uncle, why don't you activate the altar? Guo Zixiong said, Feiyang, there's something you don't know. This place is called the Land of the Undead. It's also considered a forbidden area, so it's impossible to activate the altar. Land of the Undead, Qin Feiyang glanced around. This place was full of lonely souls and wild ghosts. It was not an exaggeration to call it the Land of the Undead. Qin Feiyang said, then tell me about the situation in the ancient realm. All right. The ancient realm is divided into 5 large plates. They are, Dongling, Nanhuang, Shiji, Nanhuang, Nanhuang, and Shenzhou. Dongling, Nanhuang, 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 and Nanhuang are located in the 4 cardinal directions of the ancient realm. Shenzhou is located in the center of the ancient realm. And where we are now is in the border area of the Nanhuang. Guo Zixiong said. You're so strong, and you're still in the border area of the Nanhuang. Qin Feiyang was stunned. We're strong. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, Guo Zixiong, Guo De, and the others couldn't help but smile bitterly. What? Qin Feiyang looked at them suspiciously. Feiyang, you don't understand the situation in the ancient realm, so you think we're strong. But in fact, our Guo clan's position in the ancient realm is like a small village in your world. It's insignificant. Guo Zixiong sighed. Ah. Qin Feiyang was extremely shocked. There were so many war gods and even perfected war gods, but they were still so weak. Let me put it this way. In our northern region, even if a clan or force has a divine lord, it's at most a third-rate force. And our Guo clan, as well as the Gao clan from before, is nothing. Guo Zixiong shook his head and laughed self-deprecatingly. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel a storm in his heart. In the great Qin Empire and the Forgotten Continent, there were no divine lords at all. Even the guardians of the two continents, Yuan Bo and the Snow Python, were only half-step divine lords. But in this place, a force with a divine lord could only be considered third-rate. What kind of world was this ancient realm? The ancient realm's territory is unimaginably large. Even for me, it would take a few years to cross the northern region. And the number of experts in the ancient realm is incalculable. Similarly, this is a place full of cold-blooded and cruel. Feiyang, in the future, you must be careful with every step because once you take a wrong step, you'll end up with your body crushed. Guo Zixiong warned. Thank you for your reminder, uncle. Qin Feiyang smiled gratefully. Even Guo Zixiong needed a few years to cross the northern region. This continent of the ancient realm was really ridiculously large. Soon, the land and sky in front gradually became clear. And he could already see some weeds and small trees growing tenaciously on this desolate land. Another moment passed. The vegetation on the ground became denser and denser. And he could slowly sense the existence of essence between heaven and earth. Guo Zixiong pointed ahead and said with a smile, after crossing the mountain ridge in front, you'll be out of the land of the dead. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked over. The mountain ridge was verdant and lush with vegetation. It was like a huge green dragon lying across the horizon. And the sky outside the mountain ridge was also clear. A sun hung high, emitting a soft light that illuminated the land. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, I originally thought that the entire ancient realm was dark. How is that possible? This kind of phenomenon only exists in the land of the dead. And the outside world is no different from your world. No. There are some differences. That's essence. Although the land of the dead is lacking in essence, the essence outside is extremely rich. Moreover, the thing that the ancient realm lacks the least is resources like medicinal herbs. Let me put it this way. Even people who don't have the slightest talent for cultivation can rely on these essence and resources to accumulate their cultivation. Guo Zixiong said with a smile. Qin Feiyang said, in that case, there isn't even a mortal in this ancient realm? Yes. There isn't a mortal here, all of them are cultivators. Guo Zixiong nodded. Qin Feiyang's eyes were dull. The situation in the ancient world had already far exceeded his imagination. He also began to look forward to it. How many surprises could this mystical continent bring him? While they were talking, the group had already crossed the mountain ridge. The scene in front of him deeply shocked Qin Feiyang. Outside the mountain ridge, there was a vast and boundless land. On the ground, mountain ranges overlapped and ancient trees towered into the sky. Some giant peaks were as tall as 100,000 feet, towering into the clouds, emitting an incomparably majestic aura. The rivers were like giant pythons, twisting and turning. And in the mountains, there were countless ferocious beasts and birds. They were preying, killing, and roaring. Just within the range of his vision, Qin Feiyang sensed more than 100 war-god-level ferocious auras. There were even more pseudo-god-level ferocious auras. And what shocked Qin Feiyang the most was the essence here. What Guo Zixiong said was true. The essence of this world was completely incomparable to the great Qin and forgotten continent. The difference was estimated to be at least dozens of times. In such an environment, not to mention mortals, even a fool or an idiot could step on the path of cultivation. Very shocking, right? Guo Zixiong said with a smile. Qin Feiyang nodded. This was something that could not be denied. Guo Zixiong said, when your ancestor first came to the ancient realm, he was the same as you. Ancestor, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, raised his head, looked at Guo Zixiong, and said, Uncle, do you really not know where my ancestor is now? I really don't know. Back then, when he left, he only said I'll see you again, and left. Guo Zixiong shook his head and smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and asked, then in this ancient realm, how many people know about my ancestor's existence? Guo Zixiong was a little hesitant. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Let me say something that you don't need to be angry with. Although your ancestor is a famous big shot on your continent. But in the ancient realm, he's nothing at all. So even if someone has seen him, they won't remember him. Guo Zixiong said. Yes. If it wasn't for your ancestor's kindness to us, we wouldn't care about him. Guo De added. Qin Feiyang nodded thoughtfully. Indeed. Back then, his ancestor was just a low-level war god like him. In the ancient realm, a low-level war god was just an insignificant character. Huff. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, looked up at the vast land in front of him, and said with a smile, the journey has officially begun. Don't let me down. Ah. Guo Zixiong and the others looked at each other. That confident smile, that expectant look, it was exactly the same as Qin Batian back then. Uncle, let's go. Qin Feiyang took a step forward. Wait. Guo Zixiong hurriedly pulled him back. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked at him suspiciously. Guo Zixiong hurriedly said, there are more than a dozen monarch god-level beasts in this mountain range. We can't go in. Monarch god-level beasts? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Guo Zixiong said, yes, we can't afford to provoke these terrifying existences. Let's just open the altar and go back. As he spoke, he took out a palm-sized altar. As divine power flowed in, the altar expanded and quickly recovered. Qin Feiyang looked at the altar and said, is this altar really a one-time use item? Because the altar that Guo Zixiong took out was exactly the same as the altars in the Great Qin and Forgotten Continent. It's real. Guo Zixiong nodded and stepped onto the altar. Guo De and the others also jumped up, but Qin Feiyang didn't. He looked away from the altar and scanned the mountains in front of him. Chapter 1920. Feiyang, what are you doing? Guo Zixiong looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Uncle, you guys go back first, I'll go take a walk in the mountains. Are you crazy? Guo Zixiong was furious. Guo De and the others also tried their best to get along. This mountain was too dangerous, don't do anything stupid. Chirp. Suddenly. In the distant mountains, there was a deafening cry, followed by a ferocious bird soaring into the sky. It was a black eagle. It spread its wings and a strong wind blew. Its body was dozens of meters long and it emitted a ferocious aura. It was at the level of an initial success war god. However, its expression was extremely flustered, as if it was running for its life. Boom! Crack! Then, accompanied by a series of earth-shaking explosions, another colossus shattered the earth and mountains, rushed into the sky, and bit down on the black eagle. It was the head of a giant python. Its entire body was blood-red, like a mountain. Its fangs were dense, and its huge pupils were also suffused with a cold light. Not good. Guo Zixiong and the others suddenly changed their expressions and were filled with fear. Qin Feiyang was also dumbfounded. That black eagle was an initial success war god, but it was bitten by the giant python and couldn't move at all. Just how strong was the giant python? Next, an even more terrifying scene appeared. That giant python actually swallowed the black eagle alive. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang swallowed his saliva and cold sweat flowed down. Not only was the black eagle an initial success war god, its body was also dozens of meters long, but it actually swallowed it whole. How big was that giant python? Qin Feiyang looked down along the head of the giant python. However, other than the head, the body of the giant python was blocked by a few giant peaks in front of it, so he couldn't see the whole picture. However, it was obvious that it was definitely a terrifying existence. Guo Zixiong urged, "Feiyang, hurry up, it is one of the overlords of this mountain range. If it discovers us, none of us will be able to escape." One of the overlords. You mean, it has the cultivation of a monarch god? Qin Feiyang said. Yes. Over 2,000 years ago, it stepped into the realm of an initial divine lord. Such an existence is definitely not someone you and I can provoke. Guo Zixiong said anxiously. An initial divine lord. Qin Feiyang looked up at the giant head, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, the python looked over and saw Qin Feiyang, Guo Zixiong, and the others. Damn it, hurry. Guo Zixiong's body trembled as he hastily shouted. But Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. Roar. The giant python roared fiercely, and waves of terrifying power surged over like a tide. Qin Feiyang trembled both physically and mentally. Facing this ferocious might, he felt as if he was facing the might of the heavens. A sense of insignificance arose spontaneously. Guo De urged, "Patriarch, don't worry about him. Let's go." Guo Zixiong stomped his foot angrily and shouted, "My Guo family's base is just outside this mountain range. When you go out, you can ask around and find out. Be careful." After saying that, the group of phantoms quickly dissipated. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also withdrew his aura and rushed into the forest below like lightning. "Human, you're quite bold. You didn't run away." The giant python looked at the place where Qin Feiyang disappeared. Its huge body rose into the air, and its ferocious aura enveloped all directions. Qin Feiyang stood in the forest and looked up at the giant python with a shocked expression. It was a crimson python. Its body was tens of thousands of feet long. Its entire body was covered with blood-red scales. From afar, it looked like a majestic mountain range roaring toward them. It's so big. No wonder it could swallow that black eagle. No. That black eagle is probably not enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Qin Feiyang murmured. He decisively activated the movement formula and flew into the sky like lightning. The crimson python did not give up. Its divine sense covered tens of thousands of miles as it chased after Qin Feiyang. Roar. Chirp. Boom. The arrival of the crimson python also caused the area to become extremely chaotic. Countless ferocious beasts and birds fled in fear. Some beasts rose into the sky, but before they could escape, they were swallowed by the crimson python. It was a ruthless predator. None of the prey that it had locked onto could escape. Qin Feiyang looked back at the crimson python as he ran. He was not afraid at all. Instead, he had an impulse to try. An early-stage divine lord, he wondered if he could compete with the crimson python with the six-word formula. How can this human be so fast? High in the sky. The crimson python's eyes were filled with surprise. All of a sudden, the crimson python raised its huge tail and smashed toward Qin Feiyang with a deafening sound of wind and thunder. Boom! A few giant peaks were directly shattered. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. With a wave of his hand, a blood-red bolt of lightning streaked across the sky and hit the giant tail. Clang! Sparks flew and a snake's scale was immediately shattered. Then, the blood-red bolt of lightning penetrated into the snake's flesh and penetrated through the other side of the giant tail. A fist-sized bloody hole suddenly appeared. Ah! The crimson python lowered its head and looked at the bloody hole in its tail. Its eyes were filled with astonishment. Qin Feiyang was also a little stunned. In fact, he was just trying it out. He did not want to cause any harm to the crimson python. But he did not expect the blood-red bolt of lightning to be so powerful that it could easily tear apart the crimson python's defense. The formula was divided into low, middle, high, perfect, peak and legendary levels. The 6-word formula was above the legendary level. But Qin Feiyang could not tell what level the 6-word formula belonged to. But he had figured out one thing. The 6-word formula could ignore the barrier of the realm. Normally speaking. For example, the war emperor would not be able to break through the barrier of the realm when facing the false god or war god, no matter how strong the formula was. The so-called barrier was the barrier between the two realms. Similarly, it was the same for the war god and the divine lord. If in the past, the war god was the ruler of this world and everyone below the war emperor was an ant, then now, in front of the divine lord, the war god was an ant. In short, if any divine lord wanted to kill a war god, even a perfect war god, it would only take a flick of his finger. Unless he had an extremely heaven-defying formula or a divine artifact in his hands. And now, the fact that the blood-red bolt of lightning could injure the crimson python was enough to show that the 6-word formula could ignore the gap between realms. The crimson python came back to its senses, lowered its head and looked at Qin Feiyang, and asked curiously, "Human brat, what was that thing you used just now?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. What was going on with this crimson python? Shouldn't it be angry after hurting it? Why was it communicating with him in a pleasant manner? Wait! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang noticed that the bloody hole on the crimson python's tail had already healed, and there wasn't even a single scar left. So that's how it is. Realizing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh bitterly. It seemed to be very serious, but to the crimson python, this kind of injury was nothing at all. At most, it was just a mosquito bite, so naturally, it wouldn't make the crimson python angry. Seeing that Qin Feiyang didn't speak for a long time, the crimson python began to lose its patience and said angrily, "Human brat, I'm asking you a question." Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and said indifferently, "How could I tell you such a thing? You're quite smart, knowing that you'll get into trouble because of your wealth. But don't be nervous, tell me and I'll let you go. I'll even give you a few hundred soul stones." The crimson python's eyes flickered as it grinned. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at the crimson python suspiciously and asked, "Do you have so many soul stones?" Seeing that Qin Feiyang had taken the bait, the crimson python nodded and said, "Of course, not to mention soul stones, I even have soul vein." Soul vein? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Soul stones come from soul vein. Soul vein can automatically absorb the essence of heaven and earth and continuously produce soul stones. The voice of the female fire lotus sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and said secretly, "Then how many soul stones can this soul vein produce in a day?" You shouldn't ask that. You should ask, how many can it produce in a year? As far as I know, soul vein is divided into 3, 6, and 9. Level 1 soul vein is the lowest, and it can produce 10 soul stones a year. The female fire lotus said. Ah! Qin Feiyang was stunned. Only 10 soul stones were produced in a year. That was way too low. Could it be that Guo Zixiong and Guo De both had pained expressions when they gave him soul stones back then? That's why soul stones are very rare in the ancient world. If a soul vein appears, even if it's only a level 1, it will cause all forces to fight for it. The female fire lotus said. Kid, what's with that expression? Don't you even know what a soul vein is? The crimson python looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. You can't let it know that you're from another world, or there'll be big trouble. And I've been here before. There's no soul vein at all. It's just fooling you. The female fire lotus said. This cunning beast. Qin Feiyang cursed and looked up at the crimson python, saying, Who said I don't know about soul vein? Since you said you have a soul vein, then tell me, what's the level of your soul vein? I'm a monarch god. How can my soul vein be low level? Let me tell you, the soul vein I have is a level 5 soul vein. The crimson python said proudly. Level 5? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. This beast doesn't even know how to brag. Since that's the case, then I'll brag with this guy. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly and took the initiative to fly into the sky. He showed an excited and eager expression and asked, Lord, is this true? Don't lie to me. Of course it's true. As long as you tell me, I'll keep my promise and give you soul stones immediately. The crimson python said solemnly. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a trace of light and said, Fire Lotus, do you think it has soul stones? Although it doesn't have a soul vein, as a monarch god divine beast, it definitely has soul stones. And I guess it's more soul stones than the Guo family gave you. The female fire lotus said. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's heart suddenly became lively. Chapter 1921. The blood python raised its eyebrows and said, Kid, there is a limit to my patience. Yes, yes, yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, To be honest, I used a divine artifact just now. Divine artifact? The blood python was stunned and cursed inwardly. What kind of divine artifact could actually injure it despite the difference in cultivation level? Let me take a look. The blood python urged. No, what if you snatch it away? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Kid, I'm already giving you face by talking to you calmly, so don't be so shameless. The blood python's eyes flashed coldly. Qin Feiyang took a few steps back and looked at the blood python warily. You want to snatch it? The blood python said, If you don't hand it over, I might really snatch it away. I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Qin Feiyang sneered. The blood python was stunned. How dare he show such a contemptuous look in front of it? It seems that you won't cry until you're in the coffin. Boom! A terrifying pressure rushed toward Qin Feiyang like a volcanic eruption. Qin Feiyang was immediately imprisoned in the void. I'll kill you sooner or later anyway, so I don't want to waste my breath. Once I swallow you alive, the divine artifact will naturally be mine. The blood python smiled coldly and opened its bloody mouth, revealing its sharp fangs and biting toward Qin Feiyang. Your Majesty can't imprison me. Qin Feiyang grinned and his aura exploded, instantly breaking the Majesty's imprisonment. What? The blood python's eyes widened. A mere god of war could break the majesty of a divine lord? How was that possible? However. So what if he broke free from the Majesty's imprisonment? How could a mere god of war fly away in front of its eyes? However, the next moment, Qin Feiyang disappeared without a trace in front of its eyes. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. The blood python immediately released its divine sense. A divine lord psyche was enough to cover hundreds of thousands of kilometers. However, within the range of his spiritual sense, he could not find any trace of Qin Feiyang. Could it be that he had a spatial divine item? However, in this area, it did not find any traces of spatial divine items. He disappeared just like that. The crimson python scanned the surrounding void with a furious expression. However, most of them were still confused. How did he leave? The Black Tortoise World. Above the medicine field in the Devil's Land. Qin Feiyang stood against the wind and looked at the blood python in front of him. His eyes flickered. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and a female fire lotus appeared beside him. Huo Lian, since you're here, do you know where the blood python hid its soul stone? Qin Feiyang asked. I don't know. Fire Lotus shook her head and said, but the soul stone is such an important thing. Generally speaking, it would carry it with it. Qin Feiyang rubbed his head and said helplessly, if it carries it with it, it will be a bit troublesome to make it hand it over willingly. Then we'll snatch it. Fire Lotus smiled. Snatch it? To be honest, I'm not very confident. It's because I've never fought with an expert at the level of a Sir God before. Moreover, there are more than a dozen divine beasts as strong as the blood python in this mountain range. If they are alarmed, then we will really be in trouble. So snatching it by force is really a bad idea. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. However, he was unwilling to give up on the fat meat in front of him. Fire Lotus thought for a while and said with a smile, you can think about it yourself. I can't help you. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and his eyes lit up. Then, Qin Feiyang raised his arm and killing intent surged out continuously. A blood-red sword condensed. Looking at the blood-red sword, Fire Lotus's eyes couldn't help but emit a strange light. This is what it wants. I might as well give it to it. Qin Feiyang laughed mischievously. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Outside. The more the blood python thought about it, the angrier it became. Its huge body trembled in the void. Clang! Suddenly, a sword light appeared and tore through the sky. Then, Qin Feiyang charged out with the blood-red sword. The blood python was shocked. Its divine power surged and condensed into a thick shield wall in front of it. The blood-red sword slashed on the shield wall. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, the shield wall shattered on the spot. The blood python looked at the blood-red sword in Qin Feiyang's hand in shock. As for how Qin Feiyang left and how he suddenly appeared, it completely forgot about it. That's my divine weapon. Qin Feiyang hid the blood-red sword behind his back and looked at the blood python with a vigilant smile. He wanted to pretend that he cared a lot about the blood-red sword so that the blood python would take the bait. And by doing so, he wouldn't give the blood python a chance to observe the blood-red sword carefully. After all, the blood-red sword was condensed with killing intent. Although it was similar to a divine weapon, it was still different from a real divine weapon. If it was placed in front of the blood python and let it observe it carefully, it would definitely find some clues. Divine weapon, at this moment, the blood python was completely shocked and its breathing became rapid. To think that it, a divine lord, could easily destroy the shield wall condensed with divine power. The level of the blood-red sword must be high. Most importantly, the blood-red sword could ignore the existence of a higher realm. If it could get this divine weapon, it could totally be the king here. Kid, give that sword to me. The blood python's divine power surged and locked onto Qin Feiyang. Give it to you. Do you think it's possible? Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. The blood python's eyes flashed with killing intent. If you don't give it to me, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave this place. Then, how did I leave just now? Qin Feiyang smiled mockingly. The blood python's eyes darkened slightly. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and smiled. How about this, let's make a deal. What deal? The blood python was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, "Give me 10,000 soul stones and I'll give this divine weapon to you." What? 10,000 soul stones? The blood python glared and roared, "Why don't you rob me?" Qin Feiyang said, "I want to, but I don't have the ability." It seems that you still have some self-awareness. The blood python snorted and pondered for a while. "You're asking for too much. I don't have it." Qin Feiyang frowned. "You even have a level 5 soul line. Can't you take out 10,000 soul stones?" The blood python looked embarrassed. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. "I knew it. What soul line? It's all nonsense." The blood python smiled embarrassedly. All of a sudden, without any warning, it raised its gigantic tail and smashed it towards Qin Feiyang with lightning speed. Its eyes were filled with killing intent. Swoosh! Although the blood python's attack was sudden, Qin Feiyang did not let down his guard. Before the gigantic tail landed, he entered the black tortoise world once more. Damn it! What a troublesome brat! The blood python was furious after failing to catch Su Ping. Swoosh! Qin Feiyang appeared in the void opposite with a frosty expression. "This is the second time you've attacked. Don't test my patience." The blood python raised its brows. It seemed that it would not work to snatch it. Suppressing the anger in its heart, the blood python exhaled and said, 10,000 soul stones are too much. I only have 3,000 soul stones with me right now. Indeed, it's more than Guazixiong and the others. Qin Feiyang was secretly delighted and shook his head. There's no room for negotiation. It has to be 10,000 soul stones. The anger in the blood python's heart almost exploded once more. I'll endure it. The blood python took a deep breath and said, "How about I owe it to you first?" "I don't owe it to you." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Don't be ungrateful." The blood python was furious. "This is a fair trade. How is that ungrateful? Furthermore, you're the one who profited from exchanging such a powerful god weapon for 10,000 soul stones, all right?" Qin Feiyang said. The blood python's eyes flickered. Suddenly, it was stunned as it sized up Qin Feiyang. "That's not right. You're willing to give me such a powerful god weapon. Is there a problem with this?" "Of course I'm unwilling. But I have no choice. I can only break through faster if I obtain a large number of soul stones." Qin Feiyang sighed. "Kid, you're quite smart. No matter how powerful an external object is, it's still an external object. It can't be compared to your own strength." The blood python said. "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded. The blood python gritted its teeth and said, "All right, you wait here. I'll go gather some soul stones." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he frowned. "You're not going to play any tricks, are you?" "I should be the one saying that. You'd better not play any tricks. Otherwise, I won't let you go even if I have to go to heaven or hell." The blood python snorted as its body shrunk rapidly and disappeared into the depths of the mountain. "Tricking me? Who's tricking who?" A sinister smile crept onto Qin Feiyang's face. If the crimson python could really find 10,000 soul stones, then the white-eyed wolf, Yu Huang, Lu Mu, Qin Rushuang, and Lei Bao would all be able to reach the divine battle realm in a short period of time. Let's not talk about the others. Let's talk about the white-eyed wolf first. Once it became a war god, its innate divine ability would be very useful in the future. With a happy mood, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in the forest below. He sat on a green rock and waited patiently. There were countless beasts wandering around. Most of them were war god level divine beasts. There were even a dozen perfect war god level divine beasts. But feeling the terrifying murderous aura from the blood-red longsword, none of the beasts dared to get close. About half an hour later, a murderous aura that could make people despair approached from afar. After a few breaths, the blood python appeared in the sky above. Qin Feiyang quickly got up and flew into the sky. He stood in front of the blood python and said cautiously, "I'll say it again. Don't play any tricks." He couldn't appear too relaxed. Otherwise, it might arouse the blood python's suspicion. Humph. The blood python snorted and took out a Qianquan bag from its qi. Qin Feiyang looked at the Qianquan pouch, and a glint flashed across his eyes. He asked with a doubtful attitude, "You really have 10,000 soul stones inside? Don't you know how to check with your divine sense?" The blood python said angrily. Qin Feiyang released his divine sense into the Qianquan bag. He immediately became excited. There was nothing else in the Qianquan bag, only soul stones. After careful counting, there were exactly 10,000 of them, not one more, not one less. The blood python said, "We'll exchange the money and the goods. Don't play any tricks." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. The blood-red longsword flew towards the blood python. At the same time, the Qianquan bag also flew towards Qin Feiyang. Chapter 1922. The transaction went smoothly. Qin Feiyang grabbed the Qianquan bag. The blood python also used its divine power to imprison the blood-red sword in the void in front of it. One man and one beast, as if they had obtained a treasure, couldn't close their mouths. Qin Feiyang directly put away the Qianquan bag and looked at the blood python with a smile, quickly erased the blood contract inside and dripped blood to recognize it as the master. The blood python was stunned. "That's right. I haven't dripped blood to recognize it as the master yet." It glanced at Qin Feiyang with a hint of ridicule in its eyes. He actually reminded it. "Wait and see. The soul stone is not so easy to get. After dripping blood to recognize it as the master, with the terrifying power of this artifact, I can't do anything to you." The blood python sneered in its heart. From the beginning, it didn't intend to give the soul stone to Qin Feiyang. Its plan was to cheat the blood-red sword first. The blood-red sword in the hands of a war god could exert such terrifying power, not to mention in the hands of a monarch god. At that time, the blood-red sword had fully recovered. Even if Qin Feiyang hit again, it was full of confidence that it could make Qin Feiyang show his true form. But at the same time, Qin Feiyang also had a hint of ridicule in his eyes. One man and one beast, each with their own ulterior motives. The blood python quietly urged its divine power and poured it into the blood-red sword. But just as the divine power entered the blood-red sword, its body suddenly stiffened. "What's going on? This battle sword, why isn't it made of divine iron? This is murderous intent. Bastard, this is actually just a battle sword condensed by murderous intent." Huh, Qin Feiyang really couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed out loud. Hearing this laughter, the blood python's eyes suddenly sank, and a monstrous anger in its heart surged out uncontrollably. "Do you really think it's a divine artifact?" Huh, Qin Feiyang laughed so hard that he rocked back and forth. He laughed so hard that tears almost came out of his eyes. The blood python gritted its teeth and stared at Qin Feiyang, its eyes extremely hazy. "The situation is actually like this. That blood-red sword was formed from a deity incantation. But this battle art is very heaven-defying. The sword it condenses is indeed very similar to a real divine weapon. Once upon a time, there was a Qilin. When he first saw this blood-red sword, he thought it was a divine weapon, just like you." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, with a thought, the blood-colored longsword floating in front of the blood python collapsed on the spot. The Kirin he was talking about was the blood Kirin. Crack! Looking at the dissipating blood-colored sword, a deafening sound suddenly came from the blood python's mouth. The venomous fang on the left side of its mouth had shattered because it had used too much force. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Even her poisonous fangs were shattered. How angry and how much did she hate him? However, the teasing look on his face became even more intense. He smiled comfortingly and said, "Don't be like this. My heart aches just looking at you." Bastard, the blood python was so angry that it spat out a mouthful of blood. The broken fangs, mixed with blood, sprayed out. Tisk, tsk, tsk. How pitiful. Qin Feiyang shook his head, his eyes full of sympathy. "You're courting death." The blood python roared into the sky. Its terrifying aura transformed into giant waves that covered the sky and covered the earth as it surged in all directions. Crack. Boom. For a moment, the sky and earth cracked and the void was annihilated. It was like the end of the world. "We'll meet again." Qin Feiyang saw that the situation was not good. He grinned at the blood python and directly entered the black tortoise world. Immediately after. He did not dare to stay for a moment. He immediately controlled the black tortoise world and flew into the depths of the mountain range. However, at this moment, a divine power barrier enveloped them. The black tortoise world was immediately trapped in the barrier. Qin Feiyang's heart sank. The reason why he immediately controlled the black tortoise world to escape was because he was worried that this would happen. Because the blood python was a divine lord. With his current cultivation level, neither the black tortoise world or the ancient castle could forcibly break through the barrier. The situation is not good. The female fire lotus had been in the sky above the herb field. She looked at the divine power barrier outside and said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he decisively stopped the black tortoise world. "Why did we stop? Shouldn't we try and see if we can forcefully break through?" Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. "No. If we forcefully break through now, it's the same as exposing our whereabouts. When the blood python knows that we're trapped in the barrier, it will definitely drag it out with us. I don't have time to waste with it. On the contrary, as long as we don't forcefully break through, it won't know if we're trapped or not. Because divine sense can't capture the black tortoise world. If it can't be sure if we're trapped or not, it will definitely disperse the barrier soon." Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Fire Lotus pondered for a while after hearing this and nodded. "After hearing what you said, it's indeed the best choice for now." Outside. The blood python floated within the barrier and carefully searched this inch of space with its divine sense. But no matter how carefully it searched, it couldn't find any trace of Qin Feiyang, let alone any traces of the space divine item. "Where is it? Little bastard, I don't believe that you've already escaped, get out here." The blood python roared again and again, its hostility soaring to the sky. Whoosh! At this moment, more than a dozen ferocious beasts came from afar like lightning. Every one of them was extremely large. They were ferocious and imposing. And the aura they exuded was no weaker than the blood python. Obviously. Like the blood python, they were the overlords of this mountain range. "Blood python, what are you doing? Not long ago, when you came to borrow soul stones from us, didn't you look very happy? At that time, when we asked you, you didn't say anything. You were so mysterious. Why are you causing such a big commotion now?" Those ferocious beasts looked at the blood python in the barrier suspiciously. "Shut up." The blood python glared at those ferocious beasts angrily and continued to scan the void inside the barrier. Its eyes were extremely fierce. "After being together for so many years, this is the first time I've seen this guy so angry. It seems that something must have happened before that we don't know about. I'll go and ask around to see what happened." One of the divine beasts went into the jungle below. At that time, when Qin Feiyang and the blood python were trading, there were many ferocious beasts nearby watching, so they could find out everything with a little inquiry. When that divine beast came back and explained the situation to the other divine beasts, their expressions suddenly became very strange. Was the blood python stupid? How could it believe the humans' nonsense? It was obvious that there wouldn't be such a cheap thing in the world. However, this human was quite bold. He actually dared to come here to cheat. 10,000 soul stones. Such a large number of soul stones, even for these divine beasts at the monarch god level, it would take decades or even hundreds of years to gather. Blood python, I don't care if you were cheated or not. In short, you must return the soul stones to me within 3 months. That's right. These soul stones were painstakingly accumulated by us. If you dare to go back on your words, then don't blame us for being hostile. 5 of the divine beasts looked at the blood python and said. The blood python only had 3,000 soul stones, which meant that the blood python had borrowed the other 7,000 soul stones from them. Don't bother me now, scram. The blood python was furious. I borrowed your soul stones and you still have such an attitude. Good intentions don't pay off. The 5 divine beasts sneered and turned around to leave. Blood python, that human brat should have escaped. What's the use of you squatting here? Hurry up and think of a way to find the soul stones. The other divine beasts said and left one after another. I don't believe that he has escaped so quickly. He must be hiding somewhere here. The blood python scanned the void coldly. Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyang looked at the blood python in the image and his eyebrows gradually knitted together. The female fire lotus retracted her gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang. Things don't seem to have developed in the way you think. There's no hurry. It's just a guess. Qin Feiyang smiled and didn't pay much attention to it. He directly entered the ancient castle. Young master, you're really amazing. You even dared to ignore a divine beast at the monarch god level. Zhao Tailai and the others immediately surrounded Qin Feiyang. Everyone in the ancient castle could hear the sounds outside. So even if they couldn't see what was outside, they knew what was going on. Who asked it to be stupid? Moreover, it was the one who provoked me first. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Where's the Qianquan bag? Let us have a look. The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang anxiously. Qin Feiyang took out the Qianquan bag from his chest and threw it to the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf caught it with its claws and released its divine will to check. Yu Huang, Willow Tree, and Lei Bao also looked at the Qianquan bag with anticipation. A moment later. The white-eyed wolf retracted its divine will, its eyes full of excitement. Wolf boss, how is it? Lei Bao asked. The white-eyed wolf smiled and said, not more, not less, exactly 10,000. Huh, I really didn't expect to meet such a fool as soon as I came to the ancient realm. He gave us such a large amount of soul stones. Lei Bao and Yu Huang also laughed excitedly. Alright, alright. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at the white-eyed wolf, Willow Tree, Qin Rushuang, Lei Bao, and Yu Huang, and said with a smile, hurry up and go into seclusion to refine. Alright. According to the current time rules of the ancient castle, we can step into the war god level in half a day at most. Willow Tree laughed. War god. When he was in the Black Tortoise realm, he didn't even dare to think about it. At that moment, the 2 men and 3 beasts each took out some soul stones and began to cultivate in seclusion. I'll put the remaining soul stones here. Qin Feiyang took the Qianquan bag and placed it on the altar. Then, he looked at Tan Tai Li, the mermaid palace master, Zhao Tailai, the blood Qilin, and the golden leopard, and said with a smile, if you want to refine, take it yourselves. Everyone nodded. Qin Feiyang then looked at Dan Wangkai and said, you haven't stepped into the false god realm yet. Put aside the matter of refining pills and focus on cultivating. Dan Wangkai was slightly stunned and shook his head. With you guys fighting, why would I cultivate? I just want to refine pills. Other than refining pills, he was not interested in anything else. That won't do. What if there are times when I need your help? Refining pills, there's still a long way to go. I don't lack this time. Moreover, in the future, when you want to refine divine-level pills, you need to have the cultivation of a war god. Otherwise, when you face a divine-level pill furnace and pill fire, it will be very difficult for you. Qin Feiyang said. Literature Museum. Chapter 1923. Dan Wangkai pondered for a while and nodded. All right, then I'll reluctantly go into seclusion to cultivate for a while. Reluctantly? Qin Feiyang was a little speechless. It was unknown how many people wanted to come to his ancient castle to train. However, this fellow had an expression of reluctance on his face. Dan Wangkai smiled embarrassedly. Young master, actually, compared to cultivation, I'm more concerned about alchemy fire, alchemy furnace, and mental strength. Qin Feiyang said, I've been thinking about these things, and the ancient world definitely doesn't lack alchemy fire and alchemy furnaces, so you can cultivate in peace. Thank you, young master. Dan Wangkai smiled gratefully. Qin Feiyang shook his head, walked to the altar, cut his finger, and a drop of purple gold dragon blood fell, and the iron box immediately opened. After breaking through to the war god realm, he had not read the alchemy scripture, and the 6-word divine formula. He opened the iron book with anticipation. When he turned to the 5th page, a blood-red word suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Death. That's right. On the 5th page was the word death, as if it was condensed from the blood of a demon, emitting a strong aura of death. Death? Qin Feiyang frowned. Why was it a death? And besides this death, there were no other words on the 5th page. In other words, on the 5th page, there was only one death. How could this be? Qin Feiyang's frown became tighter and tighter. In front. Whether it was the return, formula, battle, formula, kill, formula, or attainment, formula, they all had detailed annotations. But this page, there was nothing. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang found another unusual place. At the bottom of the pages of the return, formula, battle, formula, kill, formula, and attainment, formula, there was a line of small words. For example, what cultivation level must one reach to be able to turn to the next page? But now, at the bottom of the 5th page, there was no such note. No note. Did that mean that he could turn to the 6th page now? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, tentatively grabbed the 6th page, and used a little force. Immediately. Qin Feiyang was surprised. The 6th page actually moved. In other words, the 6th page could be opened now. After coming back to his senses, he immediately flipped to the 6th page with excitement. A wave of emerald green light surged out like a tide. Within this green brilliance, there was a great aura of life. The contents of the 6th page also appeared before Qin Feiyang's eyes. Life. That was right. This was the word life. Just like the 5th page, there were no other words other than the word life. Death symbol formula. Life symbol formula. Qin Feiyang looked at the two characters over and over again, his eyes full of confusion. It was common knowledge. Death, it definitely represented death. Life was definitely life. But what kind of profound meaning was hidden in these two deity arts? For a moment, Qin Feiyang was completely confused. Forget it. Let's not think too much about it for now. Let's write it down first. After all, if I can imitate a stroke, I can break through a small realm. A moment later. Qin Feiyang shook his head, raised his arm, and pressed his index finger on the first stroke of the death symbol formula. Divine power gushed out from his fingertips. However, gradually, the expression on his face froze. This death symbol formula did not absorb his divine power. He quickly imitated the life symbol formula. In the end, he found that the situation was exactly the same. What's going on? This time, Qin Feiyang was completely confused. There were no notes, and he couldn't imitate it. What was going on? Feiyang, what's wrong? The mermaid princess noticed the change in Qin Feiyang, stopped refining the soul stone, got up and walked to Qin Feiyang's side, and asked suspiciously. It's too strange. In the past, the battle symbol formula, the travel symbol formula, the kill symbol formula, and the return symbol formula were all imitated. But now, these two deity arts can't be imitated. Qin Feiyang said. The mermaid princess looked at the death symbol formula, then looked at the life symbol formula, and guessed, could it be that these two deity arts already need you to comprehend them yourself? Comprehend them myself? Qin Feiyang frowned. Although life and death seem very ordinary, if you think about it carefully, there seems to be endless mysteries hidden inside. In short, I feel that the death and life on this deity art should be different from what we understand. The mermaid princess said. Qin Feiyang said, after hearing what you said, it seems that there is really such a thing. Wait. Didn't you say that there is some kind of law power in this world? The mermaid princess seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said. Yes. For example, the law power of the ancient castle is time stop. Chang Shui's law power is time travel. For example, the law power of Mu Tianyang's blood blade is time reversal. Qin Feiyang said. The mermaid princess said, then do you think it is possible that these two words also represent some kind of law power? Qin Feiyang stared blankly for a moment. He immediately lowered his head and stared at the two large words on the page. Look, the return symbol formula, the advance symbol formula, the battle symbol formula, and the kill symbol formula, these four deity arts all have heaven-defying power. They can even ignore the existence of a large realm. Then, this life symbol formula and death symbol formula might have already transcended the boundary of deity arts. And the existence above deity arts, from what we know so far, should be the power of law. The mermaid princess said. Transcending the boundary of deity arts, the power of law, Qin Feiyang muttered to himself. Suddenly, he turned around and kissed the mermaid princess on the cheek. The mermaid princess was slightly stunned, and suddenly blushed, and secretly scolded, "What are you doing? There are so many people here." While speaking, she glanced at Tan Tai Li and the others. Seeing that everyone closed their eyes to refine the soul stone and did not pay attention to them, she was relieved. It is my great fortune to have you in this life. Your analysis is right, these two words may represent the law of life and death. Qin Feiyang was ecstatic. This is just our baseless guess, before we get confirmation, we can't directly draw a conclusion. The mermaid princess said with a smile. Yes. After all, we don't know if there is a law of life and death in this world. But we can investigate according to this line of thought. There are many strong people in the ancient world, I think there must be a few people who know some information about the power of law. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he decisively closed the iron book and opened the pill scripture. The mermaid princess also looked curiously at the side. The first thing that caught their attention was a kind of pill called life pill. There were detailed notes below. Life pill had the effect of repairing the soul, as long as the soul was not shattered, it could be quickly repaired. The second kind was called God Power Pill. This pill had the effect of restoring God power. The third kind was Undead Barrier Breaking Pill. This pill could let the undead go through the baptism of the heavenly tribulation and reconstruct their human body. The fourth kind was Heavenly Dust Divine Pill. This kind of pill could temporarily increase the cultivation of living beings by a small realm. temporarily increased the cultivation by a small realm. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess looked at each other at the same time and looked over in surprise again. After confirming again and again, they did not see wrongly. This heavenly dust divine pill did have the effect of increasing the cultivation by a small realm. However, it was different from the 9-chew yellow dragon pill and the 9-turn dragon blood pill. The 9-chew yellow dragon pill and the 9-turn dragon blood pill could permanently increase the cultivation by a small realm. But this heavenly dust divine pill was only temporary. According to the records, the effect of the heavenly dust divine pill could only last for an hour. And it could only be used by war gods. If it was a creature surpassing war god, taking the heavenly dust divine pill would have no effect. Moreover, after taking the heavenly dust divine pill, there would be a certain side effect. Within an hour after the effect of the pill passed, one would enter a weakened state. Once one entered a weakened state, no pill would be able to recover. The mermaid princess said, although there are certain side effects and a time limit, it can be considered a terrifying trump card. That's right. At a critical moment, taking this heavenly dust divine pill is enough to turn the situation around. Qin Feiyang nodded. He really didn't expect that there would be such a terrifying pill recorded in the pill scripture. The two of them continued to read. The fifth kind of pill was called the divine life pill. According to the records, this divine life pill had the same effect as the healing pill and could heal injuries. But the difference was that the divine life pill was more comprehensive. For example, the previous healing pill could only heal the injuries of the physical body. If one's bones were broken, or if one was missing an arm or a leg, they would need the bone replenishing pill and the regeneration pill. But now it was different. With just one divine life pill, all these problems could be solved. And the effect was countless times stronger than the healing pill, bone replenishing pill, and the regeneration pill. The sixth kind of pill was called the 4 symbols limitless pill. Looking at the 4 symbols limitless pill, Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess's faces immediately crawled with ecstasy. This pill was the same as the heavenly dust divine pill, it had the effect of increasing cultivation. But the difference was that the heavenly dust divine pill was temporary, while the 4 symbols limitless divine pill was permanent. In other words, the 4 symbols limitless divine pill was exactly the same as the 9-turn dragon blood pill and the 5 elements universe pill. To Qin Feiyang and the others, this was the pill that they needed the most right now. Because their current cultivation was too weak, they had to increase their cultivation as soon as possible. And this 4 symbols limitless divine pill was undoubtedly the best shortcut. Suppressing the excitement in their hearts, the two of them looked at the 7th kind of pill. Dragon Soul Primordial Spirit Pill. This Dragon Soul Primordial Spirit Pill was a pill that could break through the war god realm and open the door of potential. The mermaid princess took a deep breath and smiled. The pills in this pill scripture are really comprehensive. That's right. For me to be able to walk to this day and have today's achievements, this pill scripture has contributed greatly. Qin Feiyang said. However, when he saw the following content, Qin Feiyang's expression became rather ugly. The content was roughly, the above pills were all divine pills, and required a god-level pill furnace and pill fire, as well as a minimum of level 50 mental power to refine them. In other words, Dan Wangkai was still unable to refine these pills at the moment. He had to do it himself. But he didn't have a god-level pill furnace yet. As for the nether devil flame, although it had already been raised to the 9th grade, it could only be compared to a false god. It was still a step away from a true god-level pill fire. In other words, he still needed to find 3 clusters of 9th grade pill fire before the nether devil flame could truly advance to a god-level pill fire. And mental power, Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, looked at Dan Wangkai who was sitting cross-legged at the side and cultivating with his eyes closed, and asked, Dan Wangkai, do you have a spirit stone? Chapter 1924. Yes. Dan Wangkai opened his eyes, took out a mind stone from his Qianquan bag, and threw it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang raised his hand and caught it. I got this mind stone from the temple's Pill Pagoda master when I was in the capital. It's several times bigger than the mind stones we used to have. No matter how strong your mind power is, it won't shatter. Dan Wangkai said. Generally speaking, mind stones had a limit. Once it reached the limit, the mind stone would shatter. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. This mind stone was indeed bigger than the mind stones he had seen before. You can continue to cultivate. Qin Feiyang said, then turned to look at the mermaid princess, and said with a smile, guess what level my mind power has reached now? How would I know? The mermaid princess rolled her eyes at him. Actually, I don't know either. Since Dan Wangkai followed me, I rarely refined pills, so I didn't pay attention to how much my mind power had grown over the years. Qin Feiyang smiled, grabbed the mind stone, closed his eyes, and entered a state of meditation. Buzz. Soon. The mind stone began to vibrate again and again. Level 5. Level 10. Level 20. Level 30. Level 40. Every time the mind stone vibrated, the mermaid princess would silently count in her heart. Gradually, her breathing became hurried. Level 50. Level 60. Level 61. Is there such a high mind power? The more she thought about it, the more incredulous the mermaid princess became. Although she was not an alchemist, she had been in the temple for so many years and was very clear about the situation of alchemists. In the spiritual state, no. Even in the entire Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent, a mind power of level 10 was considered the best among the alchemists. She had never heard of a mind power of level 50 or 60. Finally, the mind stone vibrated 66 times in a row. In other words, Qin Feiyang's current spiritual power had already reached level 66. Level 66 spiritual power. You're really a freak. The mermaid princess shook her head and smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang put away the spiritual stone and smiled, this soul-refining art is truly amazing. I've improved so much without even realizing it. As for my level 66 spiritual force, it's already enough to refine these pills. All that's missing now is a pill flame and a pill furnace. The mermaid princess said, I'm afraid that even in the ancient world, everyone would hide a god-tier pill fire and pill furnace like treasures. There will always be a chance. Qin Feiyang smiled and once again looked at the 7 types of pills in the alchemy mantra. Regardless of whether it was the life pill or the 4 symbols limitless pill, they did not require many medicinal ingredients. Even the life divine pill only required 9 types of herbs. However, he had never even heard of these 9 medicinal herbs before. Furthermore, every medicinal ingredient needed to be at least 10,000 years old. Suddenly, he looked at the Dragon Soul Primordial Spirit pill with an astonished expression. What's wrong? The mermaid princess was suspicious. Qin Feiyang asked, help me take a look, am I seeing things? Why would the first medicinal ingredient of the Dragon Soul Primordial Spirit pill be the Divine Dragon's Divine Soul? The mermaid princess lowered her head to look, and said, I didn't see wrongly, it's the Divine Dragon's Divine Soul, and it's also recorded that it must be the divine soul of a great perfection war god. I'll go. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead, his face full of powerlessness. Isn't this too outrageous? In other words, if he wanted to refine the Dragon Soul Primordial Spirit pill, he had to first find a real divine dragon, then kill him and take out his divine soul. The most outrageous thing was that it actually had to be a divine dragon of a great perfection war god. Divine Dragon was a supreme divine beast with a noble bloodline. Even if he found a great perfection divine dragon, he wouldn't be willing to kill it. Because this was simply a waste of heaven's gift. As for the Dragon Soul Primordial Spirit Pill, it only needed 3 medicinal ingredients. The first was the Divine Dragon's Divine Soul. The second was a medicinal ingredient called the Dragon God Flower. The third was a medicinal ingredient called the Primordial Spirit Lotus. Qin Feiyang searched through his memories for a moment, then shook his head and said, "This Dragon God Flower, Primordial Spirit Lotus, I've never heard of them before." The Mermaid Princess said, "Look at the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill's medicinal ingredients again." Qin Feiyang's gaze shifted to the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill, and his face twitched slightly. The 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill only had a total of 5 medicinal ingredients. They were, Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, the 4 divine beasts' blood essence, as well as a medicinal ingredient called the Infinite Divine Fruit. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, I've never seen them before, let alone ask for their blood essence. The Mermaid Princess said. Yeah. Refining these pills is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly, closed the pill scripture, and closed the iron box. He looked at the Mermaid Princess and said with a smile, "Let's not think about this for now, you go and cultivate, I'll go out and see if the blood python has left. Be careful." The Mermaid Princess reminded. Qin Feiyang nodded, and his figure flickered, appearing above the herb field in the Devil's Land. "What's the situation?" The female Fire Lotus had been there all along. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the Fire Lotus smiled helplessly, "See for yourself." Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the screen. In the screen, the barrier had not disappeared, and the blood python was still floating inside the barrier. The Fire Lotus said, "From the looks of it, it seems to believe that we're trapped inside the barrier. Then I'd like to see how long it can delay us." Qin Feiyang snorted and retracted his gaze, his perception covering the entire Black Tortoise world. Half a year passed. The living beings here had more or less settled down. Conflicts and frictions were constantly occurring. The former overlords, the Vanga League, the Fengtian Palace, the main pagoda, the Nether Hall, and the Heavenly Sun Empire, had collapsed one after another. This also made the other small forces restless. However, they did not dare to fight on a large scale. This was because when they revived in the Iron Ox town, they already knew that the current ruler of the Black Tortoise world was Qin Feiyang. At the same time, they also knew that the Vanga League and the Fengtian Palace had collapsed. Therefore, the people of the various forces were waiting to see Qin Feiyang's attitude. If Qin Feiyang clearly stated that he would not interfere in the disputes of the Black Tortoise world, then the flames of war would definitely erupt in an instant. Of course. It was also impossible for Qin Feiyang to express this attitude. He also did not want to interfere in the disputes of the Black Tortoise world, and let nature take its course. "Brother Qin," suddenly. A hoarse voice appeared in Qin Feiyang's perception. Qin Feiyang was stunned and followed the voice. Soul Sealing Valley. In the deepest part of the Soul Sealing Valley, in front of an ancient stone tower, a black shadow was floating. "It's him," Qin Feiyang murmured, his eyes flashed slightly, and instantly descended in front of the black shadow. "Brother Qin, you're finally here." The black shadow was extremely excited. Qin Feiyang said, "What are you calling me for?" The black shadow said, "Brother Qin, on account of how pitiful I am, help me unlock the seal. I remember you said that you need me to give you the Heart of Origin to unlock the seal. Do you think I will give it to you? So, let's not talk about this matter." Qin Feiyang said indifferently. The black shadow pondered for a while and said, "Actually, you can also help me unlock the seal with the Heart of Origin." "I can too." Qin Feiyang was stunned and sneered, "So, you were indeed lying to me before?" No. In the past, I asked you to give me the Heart of Origin because I didn't think of this." The black shadow hurriedly said. "Didn't think of it?" Qin Feiyang sneered and said, "Do you really think I'm a fool? Do you think I don't know your intentions? I'm already in this state, what other intentions can I have?" The Black Shadow said aggrievedly. "Do you want me to point it out for you? When I give you the Heart of Origin, not only can you escape, but you can also obtain the Black Tortoise Realm, killing two birds with one stone. Unfortunately, although your calculations are good, you found the wrong target. Am I so easy to ignore?" Qin Feiyang sneered. "I really didn't." The Black Shadow said anxiously. "If you didn't play these tricks from the beginning, I might have already helped you unlock the seal. Unfortunately, you've touched my bottom line. I hate being used and deceived the most." Qin Feiyang said. Okay, it's my fault, it's all my fault. How about this, let me out, and I'll follow you and work for you in the future, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Although I'm sealed here, my body is not damaged at all. I can use the power of law, the Black Shadow said. The power of law. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at the Black Shadow in surprise. Yes. The power of law that I control is the law of fire. The Black Shadow said. The law of fire? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes, it's the power of law of fire. The flames that I control can melt any divine item in this world. The Black Shadow said with a hint of pride in his tone. The law of fire. Qin Feiyang murmured and asked calmly, "Do you know the power of law very well?" "Of course." The Black Shadow nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Then, is there a law of life and death in this world?" The law of life and death. The Black Shadow was stunned and said in surprise, "Why are you suddenly asking about this?" Qin Feiyang said, "Just answer me." Yes. And the law of life and death is the most powerful, terrifying, and supreme law of life and death in this world. With one thought, one can control the cycle of reincarnation and create all things. Comprehending the law of life and death is equivalent to being a god of creation. The Black Shadow said. So powerful? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Of course. In this world today, there is only one person who has comprehended the law of life and death. The Black Shadow said. Who? Qin Feiyang asked. The ruler of this world, Wu Tian. The Black Shadow said word by word. His words were filled with fear and dread that couldn't be dispersed. Wu Tian. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. It's this person again. Wait a minute. The six-word formula was created by Wu Tian. Could it be that Wu Tian left the words life and death in the Iron Book to remind him to comprehend the law of life and death? In other words, this Wu Tian was indeed helping him. And Chang Shui and the castle, now that he thought about it, they must have been given to him by Wu Tian. But why did the small beast and the ice dragon want to kill him? What the hell is going on? Literature Museum. Chapter 1925. The Black Shadow said suspiciously, looking at you, you seem to know Wu Tian very well. I don't even know what he looks like, how could I know him? Qin Feiyang shook his head. The Black Shadow said, so it's like that, I thought you had something to do with him. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. In terms of relationship, there was a little bit. Otherwise, why would this Wu Tian give him the ancient castle, Chang Shui, and the six-word secret art? He even reminded him to comprehend the law of life and death. But he couldn't figure out what kind of relationship there was. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and asked, besides the law of life and death and the law of fire, what other law of life and death are there? Many. For example, wind, fire, thunder, lightning, metal, wood, water, earth, light, darkness, time, space-time, they all belong to their own law of life. I have a few old friends who have mastered the law of time and space-time respectively. The Black Shadow said. Time, space-time, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, and said, time reversal and spacetime travel, do they belong to the law of time and spacetime law? That's right. It's a coincidence. I have two old friends, they respectively master the time reversal and spacetime travel. The Black Shadow said. It can't be. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Could it be that the old friends that the Black Shadow mentioned were the Blood Blade and Snowflake? It shouldn't be. How could there be such a coincidence? The Black Shadow said, their bodies are both divine weapons, one is a blood-red dagger, the other is a snowflake. I wonder how they are doing now. What? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded, and then waved his hand, the shadow of the snowflake and the dagger appeared. Seeing this, the Black Shadow was slightly stunned, and said in surprise, how do you know what they look like? Have you seen them before? Huh, Qin Feiyang raised his head and laughed. What are you laughing at? The Black Shadow was suspicious. It's really a coincidence. Not only have I seen them, but I've also fought with them. And my inner demons also cut their bodies. Qin Feiyang sneered. What? Impossible. I know their strength the best. With your current strength, let alone shattering their bodies, you can't even get close to them. The black figure said decisively. Don't overestimate yourself. Qin Feiyang coldly laughed. After which, he continued, since the two of you are friends, there's even more reason for me not to release you. Why? The black figure hurriedly said. I know exactly what kind of trash they are. As for you, you're jackals of the same lair as them. That means you're not much either. Qin Feiyang snorted. It's a misunderstanding. Although we're friends, we've always been using each other. Speaking of true feelings, I don't have any at all. The Black Shadow hurriedly explained. Don't waste your breath. I won't fall for your tricks. After saying that, Qin Feiyang turned around and prepared to leave. Really? You have to believe me. If you let me out, I'm even willing to help you deal with them. The Black Shadow hurriedly stood in front of Qin Feiyang and roared. Deal with them, Qin Feiyang muttered and looked at the Black Shadow. After a while, he said, I'll think about it. Thank you. The Black Shadow shed tears of gratitude. As long as he thought about it, there was still a chance. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang took a step forward and instantly disappeared without a trace. I didn't expect you to get out of here before me, you must wait for me, the black figure murmured, and also silently dispersed in the void. Returning to the sky above the herb field, Qin Feiyang looked at the screen. The blood python was still guarding outside, its body full of hostility. I'll go to the castle to cultivate first. Qin Feiyang looked at the female fire lotus and said. Go ahead. Anyway, I can't cultivate now. I'll help you guard here. When the blood python leaves, I'll call you. Fire Lotus said. Thank you. Qin Feiyang smiled and entered the castle. Time passed in a flash. 5 days passed. However, 5 years had passed in the castle. White-Eyed Wolf, Lei Bao, Qin Rushuang, Willow Tree, and Yu Huang had all reached the War God realm one after another. Blood Qilin, Zhao Tai Lai, Tan Tai Li, Chui Li, Golden Divine Leopard, and Tang Hai's cultivation had also improved. Dan Wangkai had also reached the peak of the 9-star Combat Emperor realm with the help of a large number of elixirs. Qin Feiyang, come out quickly. On the evening of the 5th day, the female Fire Lotus's voice was heard in the castle. Qin Feiyang immediately opened his eyes and appeared in the black tortoise boundary with Dan Wangkai. The blood python has just left. But the divine power boundary is still there. Fire Lotus said immediately. Qin Feiyang looked at the screen and then looked at Dan Wangkai and said, you should know the ultimacy of becoming a true god, right? Of course. Dan Wangkai nodded and smiled. Qin Feiyang said, then you go. When you break through to become a true god, come find me in the herb field. Okay. Dan Wonkai responded and turned into a stream of light, disappearing into the vast world like lightning. Qin Feiyang also retracted his gaze and looked at the screen again. There was indeed no trace of the blood python in the boundary. Fire Lotus asked, "Are you confident that you can break the boundary? I can even injure its divine body, let alone a mere barrier." Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. But then, he frowned again and did not go out for a long time. "What's wrong?" Fire Lotus looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyang said, "I was thinking, since the blood python has left, why didn't it remove the boundary? Is there a problem?" Fire Lotus asked. "Of course there is a problem. Think about it, if it really thinks that we have escaped, why would it leave this behind? The only explanation is that it is still suspicious that we are trapped here. Maybe it is pretending to leave to lure us out." Qin Feiyang said. Huo Lian frowned when she heard that. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and smiled, "I think we should wait a little longer." "Do as you wish." Fire Lotus said. Time passed quietly. The night passed, and the sun slowly rose from the horizon. At this moment, the blood python rushed out from the mountains below and entered the screen. Huo Lian was stunned for a moment. Then, she glanced at Qin Feiyang. She didn't expect him to guess correctly. If they went out yesterday, it would be equivalent to walking into a trap. This person's mind is not simple. Fire Lotus muttered and looked at the blood python in the screen. When the blood python entered the barrier, its divine sense appeared and scanned the void with a gloomy gaze. "Human brat, no matter where you hide, this emperor will not let you go." All of a sudden, it let out a roar, filled with anger, and flew into the depths of the mountain. The barrier also dissipated. "We can go now." Qin Feiyang smiled at Fire Lotus, then controlled the Black Tortoise realm and flew away like lightning. Half a day later, the Black Tortoise realm finally crossed the mountain range and appeared above a plain. The plain was huge, full of weeds and shrubs, and there were many large and small ponds. And in those pools, one could basically sense terrifying ferocious might. Obviously, there were berserk beasts hiding in the ponds. Whoosh! Two figures, one male and one female, suddenly appeared beside one of the ponds. It was Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus. Fire Lotus looked around and asked, "Next, are you going directly to the Guo family, or?" "No. Let's go somewhere else first and see if we can get soul stones," Qin Feiyang said. "Soul stones?" Fire Lotus was stunned and frowned. "A few days ago, didn't you just swindle 10,000 soul stones? It's all used up," Qin Feiyang said. "So fast?" Fire Lotus was stunned. "It's not like you don't know that the time inside the castle is different from outside. Although only 5 or 6 days have passed outside, 5 or 6 years have passed inside the castle. Those 10,000 soul stones have already been refined by us." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Fire Lotus was stunned and shook her head helplessly. "At this rate, no matter how many soul stones there are, it won't be enough for you." "Yeah. If only we can get a few soul veins," Qin Feiyang said. "Not enough soul veins. The castle's time rules are too abnormal, even the production of level 9 soul veins can't keep up. Unless there are hundreds or thousands of level 9 soul veins. Or, you can put them in the castle, but your castle is too small, it probably can't even fit the lowest level 1 soul veins," Fire Lotus said. "Headache." Qin Feiyang rubbed his head. "Let's go out first. After we go out, don't ask me anything, because I've only been to the Guo family, I'm not familiar with the other places," Fire Lotus said. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. Just as the two were about to leave, a fierce crocodile suddenly jumped out of the pool, its body was more than 10 meters long. Its cultivation had reached the level of a new war god. However, Fire Lotus just casually waved her hand and a wave of divine power surged. The fierce crocodile died on the spot and fell into the pool with a loud bang. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank. Although Fire Lotus's cultivation was higher than the fierce crocodile's skin was thick and its defense was terrifying. It was even comparable to a new-level wargod's defense. However, Hu Lian was able to kill it effortlessly just now. And he found that there wasn't a single wound on the fierce crocodile's body, nor was there a drop of blood. In other words, Fire Lotus's divine power didn't hurt the fierce crocodile's body. If it didn't hurt the body, how did the fierce crocodile die? Wait. Suddenly, his eyes focused as he looked at the divine power that was converging into Fire Lotus's body. He found that in Fire Lotus's divine power, there was an aura of death. This aura of death was like the aura of a death god, emotionless, cold, and directly attacking the soul. Fire Lotus seemed to see Qin Feiyang's doubts and explained, "Because I'm a dead spirit, this isn't divine power, but the power of the dead spirit. This power of the dead spirit is a bit special, it can ignore defense, enter the mind, and directly wipe out the soul." Ignore defense, directly wipe out the soul. Qin Feiyang was shocked. No wonder he didn't see any injuries on the fierce crocodile's body, it turned out that the soul was wiped out. Such a terrifying power of the dead spirit, it seems like he had to be more careful in the future. Because this woman's identity was still a mystery. Whether she would be an enemy or a friend in the future, no one knew. At the same time, he couldn't help but think, since this power of the dead spirit could ignore defense, then could the armor formed by the battle formula block it? Chapter 1926. With doubts in his heart, Qin Feiyang walked towards the end of the plain with Fire Lotus. At the end of the plain, there was a river. It was about 100 meters wide. The river flowed rapidly. On the other side of the river, there was a dense forest with vines and old trees. Soon, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus arrived in front of the river. There were many ferocious beasts lurking in the water, but they were not as strong as those they encountered in the mountains. Not to mention terrifying existences like the blood python. The two of them rose into the air and were about to fly across the river. However, Qin Feiyang was suddenly stunned. "What's wrong?" Fire Lotus stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said to Fire Lotus, "I suddenly thought of something that might help you." "What is it?" Fire Python was suspicious. "Wait a moment." Qin Feiyang smiled mysteriously and entered the ancient castle in a flash. He walked straight to the altar, opened the iron box and opened the alchemy scripture. He vaguely remembered. When he was reading the alchemy scripture, he seemed to have seen a pill called the undead barrier breaking pill. However, he was attracted by the heavenly dust divine pill and did not pay attention to it. After opening the alchemy scripture, Qin Feiyang immediately looked for the undead barrier breaking pill. Indeed, in the alchemy scripture, there was the undead barrier breaking pill. This pill could allow the undead to go through the baptism of the heavenly tribulation and reconstruct their human body. After reconstructing their human body, not only could they shed their undead body, they could also absorb the essence of heaven and earth to cultivate. Simply put, after taking the undead barrier breaking pill and successfully transcending the tribulation, the undead could become a real human. As for the undead barrier breaking pill, it required a total of 4 herbs. They were, undead flower, death fruit, yin-yang wood, and extreme yang thunder fire. I've never heard of these herbs before. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He closed the alchemy scripture and pondered for a moment before leaving the ancient castle and appearing beside Fire Lotus. "What's wrong?" Fire Lotus was suspicious. Her expression was very gentle, and her personality was very kind. She looked like a little sister next door, and there was no threat at all. Qin Feiyang smiled. As he flew to the other side of the river, he asked, "Have you ever heard of a pill called the undead barrier breaking pill?" Fire Lotus was beside Qin Feiyang. She pondered for a moment and shook her head. "I don't remember. What's the use of this undead barrier breaking pill? It's useless to us living people. But to an undead like you, it means a lot." Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation with the undead barrier breaking pill. "Really?" Fire Lotus was very excited. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "And I'm thinking that if you shed your undead body, you might be able to recover your memories." Fire Lotus grabbed Qin Feiyang and begged, "Qin Dage, you have to help me. The days without my memories are too painful, it's simply torture." "Qin Dage." Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He smiled bitterly, "Although I don't know your past, I can imagine that you must have lived for thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. Is it appropriate to call me Big Brother?" Fire Lotus was stunned. She covered her mouth and laughed, "I didn't expect you to be such an old-fashioned person. It's just a title. What's the matter? I'm old-fashioned." Qin Feiyang was speechless. He shook his head and said, "Well, it's up to you. But your last sentence made me a little sad. The days without memories are very painful." "It's torture." "You thought of Lin Yi?" Fire Lotus asked. "Yeah. She should be the same as you. I really hope that she can quickly recover her memories and stop suffering." Qin Feiyang sighed. "You are really a good man." Fire Lotus smiled. "A good man?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He smiled helplessly, "Why do I feel that it's a bit ironic? This sentence is from the bottom of my heart. Although I don't know much about you, with your talent and strength, I believe that there must be many women who like you. But in your heart, there is only one woman, the mermaid princess, from beginning to end. If you are not a good man, then who is?" Fire Lotus said. "Don't praise me like that. I will fly to the sky." Qin Feiyang touched his nose, a little embarrassed. Fire Lotus joked, "Then fly, because no matter how high you fly, I can drag you down. You are also quite interesting. I really hope that when you recover your memories, we will not become enemies." Qin Feiyang smiled. "That's for sure. We will always be friends." Fire Lotus said. "So sure?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. Fire Lotus was speechless. "You are a person who has just entered the ancient world. What grudges can I have with you?" "That's true. But there is an old saying that the world is unpredictable. I still hope that you and I can remember what we said today." Qin Feiyang smiled. "I will remember." Fire Lotus nodded. Passing through the river, the two of them entered the sky above the forest and looked ahead. The forest covered an area of about tens of thousands of miles. With Qin Feiyang's current low-level war god cultivation, he could clearly see the scenery tens of thousands of miles away. At the end of the forest, which was the edge of the forest, there were villages of various sizes. And in the forest, there were many people hunting. The battlefield of humans and beasts could be seen everywhere. And the beasts in this forest were not very strong. The most powerful one was only a war god. Of course. The humans hunting in the forest were not strong either. "Seniors, did you come from the mountain range on the other side of the river?" Suddenly, a timid voice sounded from the forest below. "There's someone." Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus glanced at each other and looked down. They saw three young people standing below and looking at them curiously. At the same time, there was also a trace of vigilance in their eyes. The three of them looked to be in their 20s. They were all covered in blood and their hair was very messy. Obviously, they were also hunting in the forest. "You actually didn't notice them?" Qin Feiyang muttered. With his cultivation, he could see through the strength of the three at a glance. They were only one-star war gods. A mere one-star war god could actually hide from his perception. Even Fire Lotus did not notice them. Swish! The two of them took a step forward and landed in front of the three. The three of them immediately retreated. The vigilance on their faces was even stronger. Don't be nervous. Qin Feiyang revealed a kind smile. The three of them glanced at each other and still did not let down their guard. Qin Feiyang said, "Let me ask you, why didn't I sense you approaching?" "It should be because of this." One of the young men took out a jade pendant from the clothes on his chest. "So it's like this." Qin Feiyang mumbled. He took a closer look at the jade pendant and could tell that it was made by the soul-sealing stone. However, how could three mere war gods have the soul-sealing stone? Qin Feiyang asked secretly, "Fire Lotus, is the soul-sealing stone very common in this ancient realm?" "I'm not sure either. But last time, when I sneaked into the Guo family, I found that many people were wearing the soul-sealing stone." Fire Lotus transmitted her voice. "That's right. The soul-sealing stone is not considered a rare thing in the ancient realm." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Thinking back to when he was in the great Qin forgotten continent, finding a soul-sealing stone was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. But here, it was like carrots and cabbages, everywhere. The young man who took out the jade pendant asked suspiciously again, "Seniors, did you come from the other side of the river? Is this very important?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Yes." The young man nodded. The other two young men also waited for Qin Feiyang's answer with a look of anticipation. "Yes. We came from the land of the undead." Qin Feiyang said. "So, you guys crossed that mountain range?" The three of them asked in surprise. "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Amazing. It said that there are monarch god-level beasts in that mountain range." The three of them were extremely shocked. "You guys know about it too?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Of course. We live in a village outside the forest. Although we have never been to that mountain range, we have heard about it from the elders in the village. They said that the mountain range is a forbidden area. And this river here is the dividing line. You must not cross it. Two lords, to be able to cross the land of the undead, you must be very strong. Can you accept us as your disciples and teach us how to cultivate?" The three young men looked at Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus with a pleading look. "Disciples?" Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. "Two lords, please accept us. We just want to become stronger." The three of them looked at each other and even knelt on the ground and begged. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyang frowned. They were just strangers who met by chance. They didn't even know what kind of person he and Fire Lotus were, and they wanted to be apprenticed. Fire Lotus walked forward and smiled. "Get up first." The three of them got up and looked at Fire Lotus with a pitiful look. Fire Lotus's eyes were very gentle. "Tell me first, why do you want to become stronger?" "We want to protect our family in the village." "Yes. We don't want to be oppressed by them anymore." The three of them clasped their hands and said. "Oppress? Who is oppressing you?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "The Guo family." One of the young men said, his eyes full of hatred. "The Guo family?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and frowned. "The Guo family you're talking about, is the patriarch called Guo Zixiong?" "Yes." The three of them nodded. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. Fire Lotus said telepathically, "It seems that the Guo family is not a kind person." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and looked at the three young men calmly. "How does the Guo family oppress you?" "The Guo family is very domineering. Hundreds of villages of various sizes within a few 100,000 miles are all controlled by them. Usually, not only do they beat, scold, and bully us, but they also ask us to hand over 50 soul stones to them every year. You two lords must know how precious soul stones are. On the market, they are basically priceless. Villages like ours can only barely gather 50 pieces after working hard for a whole year. Sometimes, when we're unlucky and can't find anything valuable, we can't even gather that many. The three young men were talking at the same time, and all of them had an angry look on their faces. Literature Museum. Chapter 1927. There's such a thing. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. If the three of them weren't lying, then the Guo family was indeed too much. Sir, we can guarantee with our lives that every word is true. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was a little doubtful, the three young men patted their chests and swore. Then what if your villages can't gather 50 soul stones? Qin Feiyang asked. Pay with your life. Kill one person for every soul stone missing. Over the years, more than 20 people in our village have been mercilessly killed by them. The eyes of the three were filled with resentment. Pay with your life. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang was furious. How could they do such an inhumane thing? How pitiful. Fire Lotus sighed. Sir, please take us in. We really don't want to be bullied by the Guo family anymore. The three young men begged bitterly. You're so anxious. Have you never thought that we're bad people? Or are we from the Guo family? Qin Feiyang said. The Guo family, the three of them looked at the two of them with fear in their eyes. Don't be so nervous. I do have some connections with the Guo family, but I'm not from the Guo family. Qin Feiyang smiled. You have connections with the Guo family? The three of them trembled and immediately turned around to flee. Because in their view, having connections with the Guo family meant that they were related. What three reckless brats! At least before they become apprentices, they should find out the other party's identity. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Although they are reckless, it also shows how desperate they are. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so desperate. And when they heard that you have connections with the Guo family, they immediately ran away. It shows how scared they are of the Grand Preceptor. Fire Lotus said. It doesn't make sense. Our ancestor is such a kind person. How could he be friends with the Guo family? Not to mention leaving behind a marriage contract. Qin Feiyang frowned. I think there's something fishy about this. We need to investigate. Fire Lotus said. It's not just an investigation, it's a thorough investigation. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. If the Guo family was really such a person, then the possibility of the marriage contract being forged could not be ruled out. If the marriage contract was forged, then don't blame him for being impolite. But, regardless of whether the marriage contract was real or fake, Guo Zixiong definitely knew the ancestor. Let's go. Let's catch up to them and find out more information. Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus nodded. The two of them were both low-level war gods. His speed was much faster than the three youths. In just a few breaths' time, he had caught up with them. Sir, we were wrong. Please don't kill us. Their faces turned pale as they knelt on the ground and begged in despair. Get up. We are all men, how can we kneel to anyone? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and shouted. The three of them trembled and hurriedly crawled to their feet. They stood together, cowering in fear. Qin Feiyang asked, Do you know about the Gao family? Yes. They rule over another area with a few hundred villages. And just like the Guo family, they ask the villages to hand over 50 soul stones every year. The three of them hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang said, I'll say it again. Although I have a relationship with the Guo family, I'm not a member of the Guo family. I won't hurt you. But the three of them did not believe him. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and asked, then do you know about the war between the Guo family and the Gao family? We've heard about it. The three of them said. I want to know the details. Qin Feiyang said. We don't know the details either. We only heard people talking about it occasionally. The three of them were extremely anxious. Qin Feiyang said, then tell me what you know. Yes, yes, yes. The Gao family and the Guo family have always been enemies. And whether it's the Guo family or the Gao family, they both want to invade each other's territory and expand their power. But because their overall strength is about the same, although there has been friction over the years, they haven't really shed all pretense of cordiality. And basically, it's just the friction between the younger generation. The older generation has never interfered. But half a year ago, it said that the Guo family's patriarch, Guo Zixiong, suddenly led a group of gods of war and attacked the Gao family. The Gao family was caught off guard and suffered a great loss. They even lost a god of war. Naturally, the Gao family couldn't let this matter go. Since then, the friction between the Guo family and the Gao family has been escalating. After the constant fighting in the past half a year, both sides have lost a lot of clansmen. This is what we know. If you want to know more, you can ask the Gao family and the Guo family. After saying that, the three of them looked at Qin Feiyang anxiously. Qin Feiyang asked, then why did they attack the land of the undead? The land of the undead? We really don't know about this. The three of them said. Qin Feiyang said, give me the coordinates of the Gao family and give me a few altars. We have the coordinates. But we don't have the altars. Because a teleportation altar costs 1,000 god crystals. We can't afford it. The three of them said bitterly. Is 1,000 god crystals a lot? Qin Feiyang was doubtful. This, the three of them didn't know how to answer. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them and waved his hand. Alright, alright. Just give me the coordinates. The Gao family's land is in the southwest. After giving the coordinates to Qin Feiyang, the three of them ran into the forest and disappeared. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and asked again, is 1,000 god crystals really a lot? I don't know. Fire Lotus shook her head. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He had just come to the ancient world, so he didn't know what 1,000 god crystals was. Looks like I have to inquire about the situation of the ancient world in detail. Qin Feiyang exhaled and brought Fire Lotus with him. They kept teleporting and soon left the forest. One by one, the villages came into sight. The big villages had thousands of families. The smallest village had more than 1,000 families. As for cultivation, the strongest was only a 5 or 6-star war emperor. However, compared to the Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent, the strength of these villages was not simple. Because in the Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent, other than the Lu family, there was no other village that could compare to the villages here. Even the 9 provinces of the Great Qin and the 9 regions of the Forgotten Continent combined could not compare to a village here. I'm really looking forward to it. Qin Feiyang did not stop and directly teleported to the southwest. About an hour passed. Suddenly, he stopped above a village. This village had more than 10,000 families. Moreover, he sensed the aura of a false god in the village. Obviously, this village was overseen by a false god. Where did you come from? Following a hoarse shout, a white-haired old man flew into the sky. Qin Feiyang sized up the white-haired old man. This old man was the false god that he had sensed. At the same time, the white-haired old man was also sizing up Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus. Suddenly, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, lords." He was actually unable to see through the cultivation of these two people. That meant that they were definitely war gods. Qin Feiyang laughed, "Old man, there's no need to be so polite. The white-haired old man did not dare to be negligent at all, and said respectfully, "May I ask, what orders do you have for coming here?" Qin Feiyang said, "I'm just passing by." "So you're just passing by?" The white-haired old man heaved a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyang said, "Old man, I want to ask, is your village ruled by the Guo family or the Gao family?" "We belong to the Guo family," the white-haired old man said. Qin Feiyang asked, "What's the Guo family's character like?" "The Guo family's character?" The white-haired old man was stunned, and immediately became vigilant, asking carefully, "May I ask if you're from the Guo family?" Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Huo Lian and said with a smile, "See, people with a bit of experience are indeed different." Fire Lotus said, "More cautious than those three brats." Qin Feiyang looked at the white-haired old man and laughed, "Old man, don't worry, I have nothing to do with the Guo family." The white-haired old man did not believe him immediately. Qin Feiyang laughed, "Think about it, if I'm from the Guo family, then I'll definitely know that this village is ruled by the Guo family. Then, I wouldn't have asked you before." The white-haired old man thought about it, and nodded, "You're right, my lord. As for the Guo family's character, there's no need for an old man like me to say. In this area, you can ask anyone and you'll know." The old man did not say it directly. Obviously, he did not want to get into trouble. Qin Feiyang, of course, saw through the white-haired old man's thoughts. He laughed, "All right then, I won't make things difficult for you, but can you lend me a teleportation altar?" "You want to borrow a teleportation altar?" The white-haired old man was a little surprised. The two war gods did not have a teleportation altar. Qin Feiyang said, "We used to have one, but it's been used up recently." "I see." The white-haired old man nodded in realization, took out an altar from his cosmos bag, and said, "I only have one altar, I'll give it to you, my lord." "Thank you." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and thanked him, then grabbed the altar and was about to open it. Whoosh! But at this moment, two men in black suddenly descended above the village. The two men were both 2 meters tall, with bulging muscles on their bodies, looking extremely strong, and there was a fierce aura between their eyebrows. And their cultivation was at the false god realm. Looking at the two men, the white-haired old man's expression changed. He quickly flew over and bowed, "Greetings, Lord Guocheng, Lord Guoshan." "Guocheng, Guoshan. Are they from the Guo family?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Yes." Guocheng and Huo Lian raised their noses and nodded in an overbearing manner. When they raised their heads to look at Qin Feiyang and Huo Lian, their pupils immediately shrank. Guocheng asked, "Qi Yuan, who are they?" The white-haired old man's expression changed slightly, and he said with a flattering smile, "They're just asking for directions." As he spoke, he gave Qin Feiyang and Guoshan a look, indicating that they should leave quickly. But Qin Feiyang did not move. Instead, he put away the teleportation altar, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and watched curiously like a bystander. Fire Lotus was even more indifferent. Chapter 1928. Passers-by. Guocheng and Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus suspiciously for a while before retracting their gaze. Guocheng looked at the white-haired old man and said, "Qi Yuan, you know why we're here, right?" I know, I've already prepared it." Qi Yuan smiled flatteringly, took out a Qiankuan bag from his bosom, and respectfully handed it to Guocheng. Guocheng grabbed the Qiankuan bag, lowered his head to check, and nodded with a smile, "Not bad, exactly 50 soul stones." The white-haired old man smiled flatteringly, "In front of the two lords, how would I dare to lie?" "Soul stones," Qin Feiyang murmured, and sent a sound transmission, "It seems that they are really from the Guo family." "Since they are from the Guo family, why don't they know you?" Fire Lotus was puzzled. "I guess not many people know about the marriage contract." Qin Feiyang thought. These two were only false gods, at most two errand boys, so they shouldn't be qualified to know about these things. However, the Guo family's cultivation was indeed too much. A rare treasure like the soul stone could be said to be priceless. For a village to gather 50 soul stones in a year, it would probably take the entire clan's strength. This was simply exploitation. At the same time, Guo Cheng threw the Qianquan bag to Guo Shan, looked at the white-haired old man with contempt, and said, "I don't think you have the guts, but from next year onwards, the soul stones will be doubled." Doubled? The white-haired old man was stunned, and asked suspiciously, "Lord, what does this mean?" "It means that from next year onwards, villages with false gods like yours will no longer have to hand in 50 soul stones, but 100. Guo Cheng said. 100. The white-haired old man was startled, and his face suddenly turned pale. These bastards who eat people without spitting out the bones. Qin Feiyun also frowned. The Guo family was getting more and more outrageous. "Lord, why is this? 50 soul stones a year is already far beyond our burden, let alone 100. Isn't this asking for our lives?" The white-haired old man asked anxiously. "This is the patriarch's order," Guo Cheng said calmly. The white-haired old man clenched his fists and roared, "I'm going to argue with Guo Zixiong. 100 soul stones a year. Is he going to give us a way out? What? I have to hand over 100 soul stones in the future. The Guo clan is going too far." At this moment, the villagers below ran out of their houses one after another and gathered together. They all looked at Guo Cheng and Guo Shan with anger and resentment. Guo Cheng raised his eyebrows and glanced at the villagers. He looked at the white-haired old man and shouted, "Do you want to rebel?" He had heard of it. A trace of panic appeared on the white-haired old man's face. But then, he straightened his back and roared, "The government forces the people to rebel. If the Guo family really forces us like this, we might rebel." Ha! Guo Cheng and Guo Shan couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Qi Yuan, there's something you don't know yet, right? The Gao clan's territory has already been taken over by my Guo clan. My Guo clan's power now is even greater than before. You dare to rebel?" Guo Shan laughed. "What? They've already invaded the Gao clan's territory?" Qi Yuan was surprised. "That's right. Just yesterday evening, the clan leader led more than 20 war gods and killed their way into the Gao clan. Except for Gao Guofang and Gao Xiaowei, everyone in the Gao clan was wiped out by us. Now say it again. Are you rebelling?" Guo Cheng sneered at the white-haired old man. Hearing this, the white-haired old man's old face turned pale. "Say it. Aren't you very brave? Didn't you even dare to call our clan leader by his name? What? Now that you've heard the news of the Gao clan's destruction, you don't dare to say anything? Old thing, I'm giving you face, but you don't want it." Guo Cheng took a step forward and immediately slapped the white-haired old man's face. A blood-red palm print appeared. Streaks of bright red blood flowed out from the corners of the white-haired old man's mouth. However, the white-haired old man turned a deaf ear to this. His whole person seemed to have become numb. He stood there in a daze, his eyes dim and his face indifferent. The Guo clan's strength skyrocketed after annexing the Gao clan. In the future, their villages would undoubtedly have no way to survive. Suddenly, the white-haired old man looked up at Guo Cheng and said, "Just now, you said that the village with a false god will only have to hand in 100 soul stones." "Yes." Guo Cheng nodded. The white-haired old man said, "Then, will the villages without a false god still have to hand in 50 soul stones like before?" "Yes." Guo Cheng nodded again. "Good." The white-haired old man gritted his teeth and looked at the villagers below. He roared with tears in his eyes, "From this moment on, this old man is no longer a person of this village." "What?" The villagers below suddenly became restless. Guo Cheng was also stunned. Then, he said angrily, "Old thing, are you playing tricks? This is my home, the people here are also my family. If I wasn't forced to a dead end by you, would I have made such a painful decision? I think, in this world, no one would be willing to abandon a home and the family around them." The white-haired old man cried sadly. Yes. Who wants to leave home? Leave family? But in this world, there are too many helplessness. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. The white-haired old man's words deeply touched his heartstrings. However, Guo Cheng and Guo Shan's faces were gloomy. I have abandoned my family and the village. Now that there are no more false gods here, can we only hand in 50 soul stones like in previous years? The white-haired old man looked at the two and said. Guo Cheng and Guo Shan looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. However, their laughter was full of sarcasm. Old thing, do you think you can reduce the soul stones by playing tricks? Let me tell you, stop dreaming. Even if you leave, this village must hand in 100 soul stones in the future. Guo Cheng said. Guo Cheng, not 100. You have to increase the price. In the future, this village must hand in 150 soul stones every year. This is the price of playing tricks. Guo Shan said. Guo Cheng was slightly stunned and laughed. Good idea, it's decided. Qi Yuan, prepare 150 soul stones for us on this day next year. If there is one less, we will kill one of you. 150 soul stones. Qi Yuan's face was dull and disheartened. The villagers below were also filled with anger and despair. This is too much, too much. Fire Lotus looked at this scene and muttered to herself, a trace of murderous intent surging in her eyes. This was simply treating the villagers as fish to be slaughtered. However, Guo Cheng and Guo Shan's faces were full of sneers. Let's see if you dare to be rash in the future. Let's go. Guo Cheng smiled contemptuously and turned to leave with Guo Shan. Stop. But at this moment, the white-haired old man suddenly roared. The two stopped and turned to look at the white-haired old man with a cold expression. The white-haired old man stared at the two of them, like a wild beast that was about to go crazy, and said word by word, "You really don't want to give us a way out. You asked for it." Guo Cheng snorted coldly. Good. Very good. Very good. The white-haired old man nodded with a smile, and then suddenly roared in anger, "If you don't give us a way out, you can forget about living." Boom! The white-haired old man took a step towards Guo Cheng and Guo Shan, and a destructive aura rushed out from his body. Self-destruction. Old man, are you crazy? Guo Cheng and Guo Shan turned pale with fright. Yes. I am crazy, but it's because of you. The white-haired old man roared. Don't, let's talk things over. The two of them shouted as they fled in fear. There's nothing to talk about. For this village, for these family members, I have to stand up bravely. I believe that after I self-destruct, the people in the other villages will slowly wake up and rebel against the Guo family. One day, the Guo family will pay the price for everything you've done. The white-haired old man roared, and there was no fear on his face. Shwa! But just as the white-haired old man was about to self-destruct, a young figure suddenly appeared behind him. It was Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang raised his arm and gently pressed on the white-haired old man's shoulder. The white-haired old man's self-destruction was forcefully stopped. The white-haired old man was stunned, and he turned to look at Qin Feiyang. My lord, what are you doing? Qin Feiyang smiled. Old man, life is so precious. How can you seek your own death? The white-haired old man sighed. My lord, I don't want to either, but as you can see, I can only do this. Don't worry. There's always a way out. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Guo Cheng and Guo Shan. He flicked his finger and a strand of divine power shot out. After the white-haired old man stopped self-destructing, the two of them immediately activated a teleportation altar. The divine power blasted out, and the awakened altar shattered. The two of them stood awkwardly in the air and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Your Excellency, please don't meddle in other people's business. I have a bad habit. Whenever I see someone bullying others, I can't help but attack. Moreover, I owe Qi Yuan a favor. I can't just sit by and watch." Qin Feiyang smiled. Oh. The two of them were suspicious. How could Qi Yuan be related to a war god? However, Qi Yuan himself was also suspicious. Why didn't he know that this young man owed him a favor? Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and smiled. "Before you came, Qi Yuan gave me a teleportation altar." "What? Giving you a teleportation altar is considered a favor?" The two of them were stunned. Although a teleportation altar is nothing, it's still a favor. A drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. Qin Feiyang said. "My lord, you," Qi Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. He didn't know what to say. "Leave this to me." Qin Feiyang smiled at Qi Yuan. "Is this okay? They're from the Guo family. The Guo family not only has dozens of war gods, but their patriarch, Guo Zixiong, is also a great success war god. Moreover, the old patriarch of the Guo family is even stronger. He's a perfect war god." The white-haired old man said worriedly. Literature Center. Chapter 1929. After the white-haired elder finished speaking, before Qin Feiyang could say anything, Guo Cheng and Qi Yuan sneered. "Qi Yuan is right. Not only does our Guo family have dozens of war gods, but we also have a perfected war god. You better think carefully about what you should and shouldn't care about." Once they thought about their backing, the two of them became tough again. "Sir, you should leave. The Guo family has swallowed the Gao family and is even more powerful than before. Don't get yourself into trouble." Qi Yuan advised earnestly. "If I leave now, what will you do? Continue to self-destruct? And the villagers below, if you really self-destruct and die together with these two, Guo Zixiong will not let them go. By then, the fate of your clansmen will be even more miserable." Qin Feiyang said. Qi Yuan's expression froze. He really hadn't thought about this. "So, let me do it. When Guo Zixiong comes to investigate, you can just say that I killed them. Guo Zixiong will not make things difficult for you and your clansmen." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The white-haired elder hurriedly said, "Sir, I can't let you take the blame. My conscience can't bear it." "Conscience," Qin Feiyang muttered. In today's world, there were not many people with a conscience. This person was worthy of admiration. Qin Feiyang looked at Guo Cheng and Qi Yuan and smiled. "So what if you're a perfected war god?" His tone was light and his expression was calm. He did not take it to heart at all. Fire Lotus had already told him that this old patriarch was Guo Zixiong's father. Ah! Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the white-haired elder was stunned. "So what if you're a perfected war god? How could you say such disdainful words? Could it be that this young man is also a perfected war god and is even stronger than the old patriarch of the Guo family?" Guo Cheng and Qi Yuan's expressions froze. It seemed that they had encountered a tough opponent this time. The two of them scanned their surroundings, looking for a way out. "Stop looking, you have no way out." Fire Lotus took a step forward and appeared behind the two of them. The power of the dead rolled out and directly wiped out their souls. This, Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Fire Lotus helplessly and said, "Oh my god, why are you in such a hurry to kill them? Didn't you want to kill them? I'm just doing it on your behalf." Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "Of course I have to kill them, but I want to read their memories first to see what kind of person Guo Zixiong is." Qin Feiyang sighed. Fire Lotus was stunned and said unhappily, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" All right, it's my fault." Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. He glanced at the two fallen Guocheng and said, "However, these two probably don't know much. He really killed him." However, the white-haired old man and the villagers below all looked at Guocheng and Guoshan's corpses in shock. They originally thought that Qin Feiyang and Guoshan were just scaring Guocheng and Guoshan. But they didn't expect that. In the end, they killed them without any hesitation. Who exactly were this man and woman? They weren't even afraid of the Guo family. Bang! Guocheng and Guoshan's corpses fell to the ground below. Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in front of the two. After searching their bodies for a while, he took out two Qianquan bags. Huo Lian also landed beside him in a single step. The white-haired old man also hurriedly flew towards the two. Qin Feiyang checked the two Qianquan bags and looked at Fire Lotus with a smile. Not bad. There should be more than 10,000 soul stones in Guoshan's Qianquan bag. I didn't expect this either. There are more than 500 villages under the Guo family's rule. One village has 50 soul stones. More than 500 villages have more than 20,000 soul stones. And here, there are only more than 10,000 soul stones. This means that they haven't finished collecting them. The white-haired old man said. Every year, they can reap more than 20,000 soul stones without any effort. The Guo family is indeed the embodiment of the law of the jungle. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. In addition to the 10,000 soul stones, there were more than 200 divine gems and 2 teleportation altars in the 2 Qianquan bags. In addition, there were some pills. However, they were only pills with 2 or 3 elixir veins. They weren't very valuable. Qin Feiyang took out a divine gem and looked at it with a frown. What's wrong? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Look, the 2 false divinities only added up to a little over 200 deity crystals. It seems that 1,000 divine gems is indeed a big fortune in the ancient world. Qin Feiyang thought. There must be a lot of divine gems in the Guo family's treasure vault. You might as well marry Guo Zixiong's daughter. Then, you'll get a lot of wealth without any effort. Fire Lotus snickered. Am I the kind of person who would reap without any effort? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at her. Yes. Fire Lotus nodded seriously. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. But you did remind me. If the marriage contract is fake, then I'll have to take a look at the Guo family's treasure vault. See, you still want to reap without any effort. Fire Lotus rolled her eyes. How is this the same? Qin Feiyang helplessly took out 1,000 soul stones and smiled at the white-haired old man. These 1,000 soul stones should be enough for you to become a warlord. Take them. The white-haired old man looked at the soul stones and waved his hand. I don't dare to take these soul stones. Sir has already helped us a lot. If I take these soul stones, am I still human? Just take them. When you become stronger, take good care of your family. Qin Feiyang smiled and sent the 2 Qianquan bags to the castle. Then, he left with Fire Lotus. The white-haired old man looked at the 1,000 soul stones in front of him. He was so emotional that tears flowed down his face. Suddenly, he raised his head to look at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the other man, and shouted, Sirs, can you tell me your names? Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said without turning his head. Thank you, young Master Qin. The white-haired old man bowed deeply at the backs of the two. Fire Lotus smiled. Qin Dage, you're so kind. I thought you were going to take all the soul stones. This Qi Yuan has a good heart. It's okay to give him some soul stones. Qin Feiyang faintly smiled. Then, are we still going to the Gao family? Fire Lotus asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, let's go and have a look. Maybe we can still meet Guo Zixiong in the Gao family. After saying that, Qin Feiyang opened a teleportation altar. The two walked up one after another. Soon, they landed in the sky above a plain. The plain was about a dozen miles wide, but there were big and small pits everywhere. These were the traces left behind by the battle. In the middle of the plain, there was a city. The city was not big. It covered an area of about a few miles. Like the plain, it was also broken and filled with a tragic aura. And there were many corpses and blood on the ground. And in the city, Qin Feiyang could also sense the aura of dozens of false gods. They were cleaning the battlefield. Needless to say, these faux divinities were from the Guo family. Because Guo Cheng had said before that except for the two people named Gao Guofang and Gao Xiaowei, everyone in the Gao family had been slaughtered by the Guo family. The Guo family is really ruthless. Looking at the devastated city, Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Even mortals have disputes, let alone cultivators. Things like this are basically happening all the time. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang nodded. Indeed. The path of cultivation was crueler than anything else. Qin Feiyang did not release his spirit sense. He used his perception to sense the aura in the city. After a while, Qin Feiyang frowned and said, I can't sense the aura of Guo Zixiong and Guo De, but there is the aura of a war god in the city. And this aura isn't weak. I can sense it too. It seems to be a low-level war god. Fire Lotus whispered. The two of them were about to fly into the city. But suddenly, in the sky above the plain opposite the city, a black-clothed man flew through the air like lightning and landed in the sky above the city. He shouted, Miss, I found the whereabouts of Gao Guofang and Gao Xiaowei. So, at that moment, a figure flew up into the sky. It was a red-haired woman. She was also wearing a fiery red dress. She was about 1.78 meters tall and had an excellent figure. Her facial features were also quite exquisite. From afar, she looked like a fairy standing in flames. However, her expression was somewhat cold, giving off a cold feeling that kept people thousands of miles away. Where? The woman looked at the black-clothed man, her eyes flashing with a cold light, and asked. The black-clothed man said, They are hiding in the Scarlet Flame Valley and are healing their injuries. Take me there immediately. The woman said. Yes. The black-clothed man respectfully replied, turned around, and flew in the direction he came from. The woman took a step forward, but suddenly seemed to have sensed something. She turned her head and looked in the direction of Qin Feiyang and the other person. But there was nothing in the void. Miss, what's wrong? The black-clothed man looked at the woman in confusion. Nothing. The woman shook her head and suspiciously glanced at the void. Then, she turned around and followed the black-clothed man. In the void. Fire Lotus looked at the woman's back, then turned her head to Qin Feiyang and asked suspiciously, Why did you use the invisibility technique? Qin Feiyang said, I'm thinking that woman might be Guo Zixiong's daughter. Guo Zixiong's daughter? Fire Lotus was a bit surprised. Qin Feiyang asked doubtfully, Didn't you go to the Guo family? Why don't you know what she looks like? I did go to the Guo family, but I didn't see Guo Zixiong's daughter. If that woman is really Guo Zixiong's daughter, then you're really lucky. Fire Lotus mocked. Lucky? Qin Feiyang was stunned. What did she mean? Think about it. His daughter is so young, but she broke through to the low-level war god realm. It shows how terrifying her talent is. Facing such a beautiful girl, even if the marriage contract was forged by the Guo family, I'll still marry her. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. A row of black lines appeared on Qin Feiyang's forehead as he speechlessly said, Then go ahead and marry her. I absolutely won't stop you. Then I'm curious. If you don't plan to marry her, then why are you avoiding her? Fire Lotus said. I just want to see if she's really Gua Zixiong's daughter or not. If she is, then she must know about the marriage contract. If the marriage contract is fake, then I'll just show up. She won't tell the truth. Qin Feiyang said. I see. Fire Lotus suddenly smiled and teased, I thought you were shy because you met your future wife. You really know how to talk nonsense. Qin Feiyang looked at her helplessly. He waved his hand and rolled up Fire Lotus. Then, he used the Xing technique and chased after the woman and the black-clothed man. Literature Center. Chapter 1930. The Xing character formula is a heaven-defying formula. In less than 10 breaths, Qin Feiyang took the Fire Lotus and caught up with the red-clothed woman and the black-clothed man. Then, he followed them. The red-clothed woman and the black-clothed man didn't notice him at all. About 500 to 600 breaths passed. A huge valley came into sight. Around the valley, waves of fire rolled and black smoke curled up. There were no plants within a radius of dozens of miles. Crimson lava flowed and waves of heat surged, turning this place into a huge furnace. The lava came from the valley. In the middle of the valley, there was a crater with a diameter of 5 to 6 meters. Occasionally, lava would spurt out. Miss, they are in a cave on the left side of the crater. The black-clothed man pointed and said in a low voice. The two of them also concealed their presence. The red-clothed woman looked at the direction the black-clothed man pointed, but didn't see the so-called cave. She asked, Are you sure where they are? The black-clothed man said, I'm sure. I also saw Gao Xiaohui use lava to seal the entrance with my own eyes. That's good. Back off. The red-clothed woman waved her hand. Her eyes were filled with coldness. The black-clothed man said, Miss, be careful. I'm fine. Although Gao Guofeng is a perfect war god, his soul was damaged when he fought grandfather last night. His vitality was greatly damaged. If he had a life pill, he would have recovered by now. Unfortunately, both his and Gao Xiaohui's universe rings were destroyed last night. So the current Gao Guofeng is nothing to worry about. As for Gao Xiaohui, although she isn't injured, she is just a beginner war god. I can kill her with a wave of my hand. The red-clothed woman said with contempt. Perfect war god, Qin Feiyang thought. So the Gao family also has a perfect war god. No wonder the three young men he met not long ago said that the Gao family and the Guo family were equal in strength. Miss is mighty. The black-clothed man said flatteringly and then retreated silently. Gao Guofeng, Gao Xiaohui, the red-clothed woman muttered. She stepped out and landed on top of the crater. She looked down coldly and said, Gao Xiaohui, come out. But after a while, no other sound could be heard. Looks like you'll only come out if I do it. The woman in red raised her slender finger, and a surge of divine energy suddenly surged out. It turned into a wave of fire that blasted into the valley below. Accompanied by a loud bang, the valley instantly split apart and collapsed crazily. The surging magma was like a fountain as it gushed out from the ground. Black smoke enveloped the entire area. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and said with a smile, let's back off a little. Fire Lotus nodded. The two of them retreated 50 to 60 miles and stood in the void, watching from afar. To a mortal, it would take several hours to cover a distance of 50 to 60 kilometers even if they ran non-stop. However, to Qin Feiyang and Huolian, it was nothing. They could teleport away. Furthermore, with their current eyesight, they could see everything clearly even from tens of thousands of miles away. Just as the two of them retreated, two figures suddenly rushed out of the black smoke. It was an old man and a young woman. Although the old man was old, he had a ruddy complexion and white hair, and his body was quite strong. And the young woman was about the same as the woman in red. Her appearance was also quite good. She was more than 1.7 meters tall and was extremely slender. Her jet-black hair was tied together, making her look full of heroic spirit. Her skin was also very soft. However, the old man and the young woman were in a sorry state at the moment. Especially the old man, his body was covered in blood, his eyes were dim and lifeless, and there was a sense of weakness between his eyebrows that couldn't be dissolved. After the two of them appeared, they didn't bother with the woman in red. They didn't even say a word and directly teleported away. However, there was a trace of fear on their faces. Gao Guofeng, you're a perfect war god. Facing a junior like me, you actually ran away without fighting. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? The woman in red said mockingly. She took a step forward and her speed instantly increased by several times. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Gao Guofeng and Gao Guofeng. The two of them braked and stopped in the void. Gao Xiaowei immediately glared at the woman in red and shouted, "Guosweki, don't go too far." "Guosweki," Qin Feiyang mumbled. So that was the name of the woman in red. Guosweki looked at Gao Xiaowei expressionlessly and then shifted her gaze to Gao Guofeng. After observing carefully for a while, she said, "As I expected, your divine soul hasn't been repaired. Even if it hasn't been repaired, it's not something that a little kid like you can block." Gao Guofeng shouted furiously, and there was a hint of anger in his tone. His divine power was like a tide that carried a terrifying aura as it rushed toward Guosweki. Guosweki's eyes flickered. She seemed to be hesitating whether to fight head-on. Suddenly, a cold light flashed across her eyes. She raised her hand and a flame-like divine power appeared. It roared in the sky and collided with Gao Guofeng's divine power. Boom! A loud explosion that shook the sky suddenly exploded. A wave of destructive energy surged out in all directions. The land within a radius of tens of thousands of miles was razed to the ground. Dust and smoke covered the sky. Qin Feiyang also went to the Black Tortoise world with the Fire Lotus. This was because once they were affected by the fluctuations of battle, the concealment technique would disappear. However, it was different in the Black Tortoise world. No matter how Guosweki and the other two fought, even if they self-destructed, it wouldn't affect them. Outside, when the dust settled, Guosweki was pushed back dozens of miles. Her face was pale and there was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. The skin on her arm was also cracked. Blood dripped down from her fingertips. However, Guosweki ignored this injury and stared at Gao Guofeng who was standing in the void opposite her. Gao Guofeng stood firmly in the void and didn't even move a step. He didn't look any different from when he first appeared. The aura exuding from his body was extremely terrifying. How is this possible? Last night, I saw with my own eyes that his divine soul was damaged and he could only use the strength of a beginner god of war. But now, he actually pushed me back. Could it be, his divine soul has been repaired? Guosweki muttered to herself and looked at Gao Guofeng with a face full of shock. Gao Xiaowei glanced at Guosweki and ran to Gao Guofeng's side and asked, "Grandpa, are you okay?" Gao Guofeng waved his hand and said with a hoarse smile, "Don't worry, Grandpa is fine." Guosweki raised her eyebrows and said, "Your Qian Kun ring was destroyed and you didn't have the life elixir. How could you repair your divine soul so quickly? Little girl, you are still too young. Although the Qian Kun ring was destroyed, the life elixir is such an important elixir. I will definitely store it elsewhere." Gao Guofeng sneered. Damn it! Guosweki cursed in her heart. If Gao Guofeng's divine soul hadn't been repaired, she wouldn't be afraid at all. However, once Gao Guofeng's divine soul was repaired, it would be easy for him to kill her with his cultivation as a perfect god of war. Immediately, she had the thought of retreating. Wait! But suddenly, she looked Gao Guofeng up and down again. Something was wrong. If Gao Guofang's divine soul had really been repaired, why did he take Gao Xiaowei and run away? Logically speaking, if Gao Guofang's divine soul had been repaired, given the deep hatred between the two families, he should immediately take the initiative to kill her. Or take her captive and use her as a bargaining chip to threaten the Guo family. But now, although Gao Guofang was overbearing, he still had the intention to take the initiative to attack. Suddenly, Guo Sueki showed a look of realization. Her red lips curled up slightly as she wiped the blood on her hands and said with a smile, "You are indeed an old fox. I almost fell for your trick." Hearing this, a look of panic flashed across Gao Guofang's face. Obviously, his divine soul hadn't been repaired. However, on the surface, his expression didn't change. He put his hands behind his back and pretended to be calm as he looked at Guo Sueki and asked, "What do you mean? If your divine soul has been repaired, why are you still standing there and not doing anything? If I am not wrong, your situation is worse than mine in the confrontation just now. Stop pretending. Your divine soul hasn't been repaired at all." Guo Sueki sneered. The Black Tortoise World. Looking at Guo Sueki and Gao Guofang, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "The people in this ancient world are indeed not simple characters." Fire Lotus was stunned. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Qin Dage isn't afraid, is he?" Afraid? Qin Feiyang smiled. In terms of scheming, he really wasn't afraid of anyone. Outside. Hearing Guo Sueki's words, Gao Guofang's expression still didn't change. His aura became more and more terrifying. He had to continue pretending. Because only by scaring away Guo Sueki could he and his granddaughter Gao Xiaowei live. However, his weak body didn't allow it. Puff. The blood that had been held in his throat suddenly spurted out. His face instantly became pale. His body kept shaking. Even standing seemed to be very difficult. Gao Xiaowei's expression changed. She quickly stretched out her hands and grabbed Gao Guofang's arm. "Finally, you can't pretend anymore." Guo Sueki's face was full of ridicule. Gao Guofang smiled bitterly and turned to look at Gao Xiaowei. He said with a face full of guilt, "Xiaowei, I'm sorry. Grandpa is too useless. I can't even protect you." "Grandpa, don't say that. I'm the useless one." Gao Xiaowei shook her head and tears flowed down. "The Gao family only has today's achievements and status because of our ancestors' hard work. But I didn't expect that it would all be destroyed by my hands overnight. Xiaowei, Grandpa is the sinner of the Gao family." Gao Guofang cried out in grief. "Grandpa, cheer up. You still have me." Gao Xiaowei cried out. Then she turned around and protected Gao Guofang behind her. She said without turning her head, "Grandpa, I will protect you." Looking at his granddaughter in front of him, Gao Guofang undoubtedly blamed himself. He actually needed his granddaughter to protect him. He was a perfect war god. Where was his face? Gao Guofang pushed Gao Xiaowei away and roared, "Xiaowei, you are our Gao family's only hope now. You can't die here. Grandpa will hold her back. Run and find your brother. Ask him to avenge us. No one can escape." Guo Sueki smiled coldly. Chapter 1931. Accompanied by a loud clanging sound, a world-destroying sharpness appeared in front of him. Following that, a thin red sword appeared in Guo Sueki's hand. The thin sword looked like it was made of magma. The fire dragon was engraved on the sword hilt. The fire dragon divine sword. Looking at the thin sword, Gao Guofang's face changed. He shouted anxiously, "Xiaowei, don't hesitate. Hurry. I can't leave you behind, grandfather." Gao Xiaowei shook her head. Looking at Gao Guofang and Guo Sueki, there was a trace of fear for the fire dragon divine sword, but more than that, there was a reluctance to leave Gao Guofang. Clang! The fire dragon divine sword in Guosweki's hand had awakened. The aura was shocking, like a tide, covering the sky and shattering the earth. High-grade divine weapon. Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. Even the Guo family's patriarch, Guo Zixiong, only has a middle-grade divine weapon, but this girl has a high-grade divine weapon. Looks like Guosweki's status in the Guo family isn't low. Qin Dage, if you really become the Guo family's son-in-law, your future will be limitless. Fire Lotus said with a smile. Qin Feiyang heard this and felt helpless. Outside. Facing Gao Xiaohui's stubbornness, Gao Guofang was both touched and anxious. He was touched because of his granddaughter's filial piety. He was anxious because if Gao Xiaohui didn't leave, both of them would die here. All these years, the Guo family and Gao family had been at odds. Because of this, Gao Guofang knew everyone in the Guo family like the back of his hand. After all, there was a good saying. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. He had watched Guosweki grow up, so he knew Guosweki very well. Although she was beautiful, she had a heart as venomous as a snake and scorpion. Once he was killed, he would never show mercy to his granddaughter, Gao Xiaohui. Clang! Guosweki looked coldly at the grandfather and granddaughter duo. She shook the fire dragon divine sword in her hand, and thousands of sword chi roared out, forming a huge fire dragon. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards the duo. The appearance of the fire dragon also meant that the power of the fire dragon divine sword had recovered to its peak state. Seeing this, Gao Guofang immediately pushed Gao Xiaohui away and shouted, "Xiaohui, now is not the time to be sentimental. Let's go, we must find your big brother." Then, like a moth darting into a flame, he pounced towards the fire dragon formed by the sword chi. "Grandpa," Gao Xiaohui screamed in despair. "Go!" Gao Guofang roared without turning his head. Tears streamed down Gao Xiaohui's face as she stared at Gao Guofang's back. Then, she turned around and fled into the depths of the mountain. Guosweki saw it all, but she didn't care about Gao Xiaohui. She took a step forward and charged towards Gao Guofang with a cold expression. Her black hair danced in the wind and her clothes fluttered in the wind. She looked like a merciless goddess. "Guosweki, my Gao family has not perished yet. Your Guo family will definitely pay the price for the sins you have committed today." Gao Guofang roared angrily, and with what little divine power he had left, he blasted towards the fire dragon. After all, he was a perfect war god. Although his divine soul was damaged and he was unable to unleash his peak strength, he was still not to be underestimated. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shaking explosion, the fire dragon formed by the sword chi let out a wail and dissipated in the air. But at the same time, Gao Guofang's body trembled as he spat out blood. His old face was completely drained of blood. Even with his divine soul damaged, he can still display such terrifying strength. As expected of the old patriarch of the Gao family. However, this is probably your last bit of strength. Die. Guosweki was as cold as ice as she landed in front of Gao Guofang. The fire dragon divine sword shone brightly and slashed forward. Immediately. Gao Guofang let out an unwilling scream as his divine body was sliced into two by the fire dragon divine sword. Grandfather, hearing Gao Guofang scream, Gao Xiaohui turned around and saw this scene. She was instantly enraged. However, she did not stop and continued to escape with all her might. Strange, Black Tortoise World. Fire Lotus looked at Gao Guofang's corpse with a hint of suspicion in her eyes. What's strange? Qin Feiyang turned around and looked at her suspiciously. Why didn't Gao Guofang self-destruct? Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well self-destruct and die together with Guosweki. Fire Lotus said. Because of Gao Xiaohui. Gao Xiaohui hasn't escaped far. If he self-destructs, it will definitely affect Gao Xiaowei. Qin Feiyang smiled. That's true. Fire Lotus was stunned. She nodded and smiled. Then, she asked suspiciously, Qin Dage, aren't you going to help the Gao family? Help the Gao family? Why should I help them? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The enemy of the Gao family and the Guo family is naturally our friend. Fire Lotus said. Ah. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He helplessly said, although the Guo family's conduct isn't that great, the matter of the marriage contract hasn't been investigated yet. It's still too early to say that the Guo family is our enemy. So, Qin Dage still has some thoughts about the Guo family in his heart. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. What thoughts? Qin Feiyang was confused. Playing dumb. Of course it's about Guo Sueki. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang was helpless to the extreme. He really wanted to ruthlessly knock this woman's head. What was she thinking about all the time? However, as he spent more time with her, he realized that Fire Lotus was quite cute sometimes. Outside. The ground was in pieces. The magma was boiling. It was a scene of devastation. Gao Guofang's body had already fallen and was swallowed by the red magma. Guo Sueki looked down coldly. Then, she grabbed the Fire Dragon Divine Sword and chased after Gao Xiaowei. The black-clothed man standing in the distance also immediately chased after her. Qin Feiyang also controlled the Black Tortoise realm and silently followed behind Guo Sueki. In front. Gao Xiaowei felt Guo Sueki's aura. Her pale face was filled with panic and fear. Guo Sueki was an initial stage war god. Although she was also a war god, she was only an initial stage war god. Although there was only a difference of one stage, it was like an insurmountable chasm. Whether it was strength or speed, Guo Sueki surpassed her by too much. If this continued, she would not be able to escape. Whoosh! As expected. In less than 100 breaths, Guo Sueki relied on her suppressive speed to block in front of Gao Xiaowei. Gao Xiaowei slammed on the brakes and looked around in panic. Then, she looked at Guo Sueki and said angrily, "Don't go too far." Go too far? Guo Sueki sneered. Her eyes were filled with disdain. Think about it. You've been competing with me in secret all these years. You don't want to lose to me. But in the end, I've always been stronger than you. Gao Xiaowei clenched her fists and said angrily, "Are you humiliating me?" Humiliating you? The Gao family is already destroyed. You're no longer the young miss of the Gao family. You're not worthy to be my opponent. What's the point of me humiliating you? Guo Sueki said indifferently. Gao Xiaowei's face was red. She was ashamed and angry. I just want to tell you something. In this world, there will only be one genius. No matter how hard others work, they're just green leaves. Guo Sueki said. What an arrogant woman. Black Tortoise Realm. Qin Feiyang muttered. Fire Lotus said, although she's a bit arrogant, her words are reasonable. Qin Feiyang nodded. Outside. The black-clothed man also caught up and blocked Gao Xiaowei's path. Gao Xiaowei glanced at the black-clothed man, then looked at Guo Sueki and said, "Today, I'm in your hands. You can kill me or torture me. But there's a question that I can't figure out." The black-clothed man sneered, "Young miss, don't talk nonsense with her." Guo Sueki glanced at the confused Gao Xiaowei and waved her hand at the black-clothed man. Then, she looked at Gao Xiaowei and said, "Speak. The strength of our two families has always been on par. But why was my father's army wiped out in the land of the dead?" Gao Xiaowei said. Hearing this, Guo Sueki lowered her head. Her eyes flickered. Seeing that Guo Sueki was silent, the black-clothed man stared at Gao Xiaowei arrogantly and said, "Nonsense. Of course it's because the Guo family is stronger than the Gao family. Impossible. In this battle in the land of the dead, both our families have the same number of people and divine weapons. Even if the Gao family loses, it's impossible for them to be wiped out. Gao Xiaohui shouted. Battle? Qin Feiyang was stunned. What was going on? Originally, he had thought that the Gua and Gao families were fighting over something in the land of the undead, and that was why they were fighting. But he did not expect it to be a battle. Then why did these two great clans want to fight? To fight for territory? That seemed to be the case. Because now, all the villages controlled by the Gao family had been taken over by the Gua family. Gua Sueki was silent for a long time. Then, she looked up at Gao Xiaohui and said coldly, "A loss is a loss. Why are you still asking so many questions?" Gao Xiaohui shouted, "I don't believe that the Gua family has the ability. So, you must have used some despicable means. How dare you? The Gua family is upright. How can we use despicable means as you think?" Gua Sueki said angrily. Gao Xiaohui said, "Since you are upright, why are you beating around the bush?" "I'm not." Gua Sueki shook her head. "Ha, Gua Sueki, I didn't expect there to be something that you can't talk about. It seems that the Gua family's victory is not glorious." Gao Xiaohui laughed out loud, his face full of mockery. Hearing this, Gua Sueki clenched her fingers and said in a low voice, "Fine, I'll tell you. The reason why the Gao family was wiped out in the land of the dead was because of one person." Because of one person? Gao Xiaohui was stunned. She said angrily, "Who is so capable?" Gua Sueki took a deep breath and said, "My fiancé." "Fiancé?" Gao Xiaohui's face was full of surprise. She asked, "Why didn't I know that you have a fiancé? I didn't know before. Grandfather and father only told me about it recently." Gua Sueki sighed. "Fiancé," Gao Xiaohui murmured and smiled sadly, "I didn't expect that the Gua family would have such a powerful person." "Shut up. I, Gua Sueki, don't need to rely on anyone. Even without him, with my talent, I can destroy the Gao family sooner or later." Gua Sueki shouted. Literature Center.